Hello, everyone. I think we're live. I'm going to wait and make sure audio is going because I started the stream without a mic plugged in. So that was fun. It looks like it's working, but I'm going to wait and hear from you guys before. Okay, we are good. Is it loud enough? Because, yeah, apparently that was my big thing to completely skip over. Audio's okay. Okay, so tonight I'm going to be critiquing your artwork. Those of you over on Patreon have been submitting your work today, well, and yesterday. So we're going to be looking at that. I'm going to give you tips that you can apply to your own work. So even if your work is not being critiqued, if you sent it in from Patreon, it is being critiqued. But even if you're watching and you, excuse me, if you did not submit, then you are still going to learn a lot from the tips that I'm going to give. These are the same bits of advice that I would give my own students if I was working with someone in person. Of course, disclaimer, my way is not the only way to look at things. These are just my first impressions. Most of the work, I think the only one I've actually seen so far is the first one we're going over because I used it for my thumbnail, Lily's. So we are, it's art. One of the reasons that I ask for what your goals are in a piece is I may look at something and think, oh, that I don't like that. But if that was your goal, then it doesn't matter that I don't like it. It's art. So that's why I always ask, what was your goal in the piece? Because that is very, very important. If you weren't going for realism, me telling you how to make it more realistic is obviously not going to be helpful for you. So these hopefully will be just to encourage you to keep moving forward and keep growing. And don't ever take anything I say with this as a discouragement, because some people don't. I mean, if you submitted, you knew what you were getting in for. But some people, when critique is given to their work, they take it too negatively, and I don't want that for you. I want you guys to take this and learn from it and be excited and apply what I'm talking about here to your future pieces. Okay, so let's get started. Obviously there is no auction tonight. Those of you, let's see, I've got for Joey, her painting, his painting, I actually don't know if that's a male or a female, is going out because I didn't realize I have to send it USPS or UPS, not USPS, because that's a bigger painting. So that's actually not going until Saturday. Yeah, I take forever. And then the seahorse I'll probably send out at the same time from last week. Okay, and let's go ahead and get started. I don't think I have this set up in a very, the way I've got this set up certainly does not make sense. Hold on, my screens are all over the place. Let me rearrange some stuff to make sure. So we're going to go over here. So this is the first one that we're going to be looking at tonight. Oh, and as usual when I'm in the office, because the boys aren't in here, no hounds tonight. They're in the living room. I've got my reef tank, so that's our filling the space of that camera. Super chats will get the fish snacks. And okay, so let's go ahead and get started. The first one here, why am I getting notifications about my bit rate? I'm always getting notifications about the bit rate. So this one, it was submitted. Let me find what she said about it first. Lily said, I was inspired to try a black and white painting after watching you do the whale in black and white. The reference photo I took myself of my friend Bree dressed up like I wanted her to be. Originally, it was supposed to just be black and white, acrylic on linen, 16 by 20, but I'm wondering about glazing it with oil using color. Not sure how to go about doing that. Do my values make sense? And how to glaze. Okay. So this is the reference photo. Let's actually put these side by side here. This is the actual artwork. Now, the first thing I want to do on this painting is crop it out. One of the problems is because it's black and white, the edges, can you see? Yeah, good. My mouse does show. See the edges right here? That's going to throw off my balance on this a bit. So I want to crop it. And when you guys submit for critique, it's a lot easier if you can get a photo that is worthy. Like, would you make prints of that? Obviously not in this case because, and see, it's going to throw off. It's slightly skewed. When your photo is skewed a little bit, if it's a forest, a landscape, no one's really going to notice the difference. When it is a portrait, that actually does make a decent difference in the perspective. Actually, this is pretty close now that I turned that a little bit. Oh, this is actually pretty straight on. So your perspective is going to be accurate on this. It just needed my crop to turn a little bit. We were able to fix that. So I'm going to crop out the outer edge. And the reason that I'm doing that is this off to the side here makes it a little bit hard to judge the balance of everything. So there we go. That's what it would actually look like in person. So this is, I don't need this to be quite so large. I probably should have charged that earlier. Here is the black and white painting. Beautiful contrast. I really, really like the contrast. I actually like the face, the emotion on the face, the sharpness of the, like, that's really, I like it better than the photograph. Not to say your friend's not beautiful, but I really like, I don't know, there's just a little bit more emotion, I think, in the face, and I love that. So you guys know I'm a huge fan of contrast. However, it's possible to have contrast actually make, hold on, I lost the screen I was on. It's possible to make the contrast pull attention where you might not necessarily want it to be. So the first thing I'm actually going to do, let's pull up Lightroom. Whenever you're working from a black and white photo, you're going to paint it in black and white, we want to make it black and white. So we're just going to pull that all the way down. And in doing that, it makes it easier to judge values everywhere. Now, one of my main complaints about this photo is it's really cool. It actually follows the rule of thirds really nicely. Very well done there. My biggest thing is the lighting on this. I think you're missing an opportunity to get really interesting lighting, because as you switch that into black and white, in color, yeah, you see more. It's got a decent amount of contrast because of the color of her hair, the color of the dress. So that adds a certain amount of weight. But when you change it to black and white, everything's just going to kind of mix together. So whenever you're going to do something and you know you're doing it as a black and white, and I would do this color anyway, but especially black and white, like if you talk to a photographer, black and white photography is very, very different than color photography, because you're looking for a different level of, like, you're so dependent on the lighting and needing certain contrast in there. So like here, the background, I like that you made yours darker, but it's almost too dark in the actual photo. There is like really, I'm trying to see if Nick sends me a message that I have something going not the way it's supposed to. I actually cannot. Maybe if I pull up Discord on this. I don't know what I'm doing. Text me, Nick. I'll see that notification better if I have a question or if I'm missing something. If you have something on Discord that I'm missing. I have too many screens up right now. It's actually a little bit ridiculous. But anyway, so let's come back to this. So that would be my first thing. Work on the lighting. Right now, everything in this scene is so evenly lit. I'd love to see like a spotlight. Something that is more strong from one angle and not so even all the way across the board. I like the positioning of her. I like the positioning of her clothing. I like the wrinkles you can see in her clothing, her face, everything is good there. But the lighting is really where I think you can strengthen this so much. And that goes back to getting the reference photo. Now, of course, within Lightroom, we can do, where's my mouse? We can do a decent amount to touch things up with contrast, with all kinds of stuff here. We can pull certain things. Let's get things on her a little bit darker. I'm going to come up. I'm just kind of messing around with highlights. You can also, within Lightroom, come through and pick certain areas that you want. Where is my... There we go. We can actually pick different areas. What am I doing here? Let's shrink this. I'm going to pull up my highlights a bit and my whites on some of this. So I can come through and pull out areas that I want to be a bit brighter. Really make a few spots stand out. I'm not used to working with Lightroom on a small scale like this for the stream, but see how I'm pulling areas of her hair? I'm going to mess with some highlights in here a little bit stronger. And what this is doing, I mean, yeah, you can change this in the painting itself as you get going, but it makes it a little bit easier if you can do it now and you've got more, no, stop it. Stop. To work with from your reference photo. So let's do another one. I'm going to do a second one, and I'm going to pull my shadows way down on this one. Maybe not that far, we'll find out. So I can start building. I'm basically painting. I'm just going over this on areas where I want that to be a lot, let's go a lot darker. So you can play with that and start building up some of that dimension before you start, so you can get an idea of what that might look like. And all I'm doing is adjusting, like I'm making my darks a bit darker. My shadows are way darker. Let's pull down the highlights too on some of those. Like her boot. Look at, just in doing that, how much more I can make it stand out. Maybe a little bit on her hand. Now, the next would be on that background. So you can mess with that quite a bit. Actually, let's come back to this one here where I've got the highlights. I can pull out a few more highlights on the dress, which make the darks a little bit darker. And these are subtle changes, but it's going to make it easier for you when you are actually painting to have seen a little bit like stronger lighting. Let's do a little bit. Now, let's talk a bit about that background. So your background is obviously, you knew you wanted to go dark, but I think it's probably darker than what you really needed that to be. So darker, yes, but look at, we can make it darker without going straight to black. I'm going to go a little bit darker there as we move our way forward. Now we're still going to come back and look at the painting. I'm just going to give you some tips when you're doing black and white, looking at all of these adjustments that I'm making. The white here is really white. I'm going to make another one of that. I'm going to actually drop my highlights. The curtains are a bit much. Let's pull some of that. Let's get some shadows in there a little bit more. So we can kind of push that back just a bit so it's not so white. This is going to help. What I'm doing here is making it so my brightest highlights are her instead of that curtain. It's going to push that back a little bit. It's still light, and I'm making some of these wrinkles or the creases a little bit darker. It's still light. I think I got some on her face I don't want. Let me just erase the shadows I added there. But it's going to give us a little bit of a softer look there, allowing her to be more in focus. Now I can sit, like to edit a photo, I can sit and fuss over that photo for the next 2 hours to like perfect it. So these are just ideas to give you what I'm, let's see, actually let me export this and I'll pull it in here so you can see, where do I want you to go? No, that is not what I want. I just want to pull this side by side so you can see a little bit more what I'm talking about and how this can make your life much, much easier before you ever start painting. So see how we pushed back to where on yours, the fabric in the background is, so it's the same brightness, the same white that's in her is, there's just not enough contrast there. So you can soften that a lot. Darken the background, that curtain. And this comes back to that photo. It's basically, I don't want to say overexposed, but overlit. Everything's just too bright. Get a little bit more contrast in there. Now, I do love that you added the darker lines and such in the curtain, but I would darken most of that curtain. I would just tone all of that down. I would glaze, and we're going to come back to your question on glazing. I also really like, instead of just black, I like the wood grain that you've got here. I think would be beautiful in those boards. Straighten them out because right now in the photo they're not. Straighten those, but the wood grain is gorgeous. I would include that. And so it's not just solid black mass, because what happens when I look at this painting, let's get my handy pen out. I am drawn right, what do you want to work for? Let's see. There we go. I am drawn right here. That is like one of the first spots my eye is drawn to, and that is not where you want it to be. I think there's just too much contrast right in that area. I want to focus in here, which you're doing a good, again, love the balance of this otherwise, but that I think can be toned down. And if you made it more like what you've got on your photograph here, the wood grain, I think would look gorgeous. Or something just a little bit softer there. Now, speaking of the wood grain that she is sitting on, you have gone through and kind of made squiggles here, which works for water surface, but for the wood grain, take a little bit more time and get these in so they're not just little squiggles. You've got some knots in the wood. You've got some variation in there that are not just going to be those little squiggle worms. Whoops. Let me fix that. Edit. Redo. There we go. So little squiggle worms in the wood. A few of those are fine, but I would go back and refine and really define that. And I think you can do a lot of that with their dress as well. We're having in some of these areas, like her boots, these lines in there, I often think of them as worms. And I don't say that to be like harsh or to make fun, but you're probably never going to forget that. You're probably not going to do that again. They look too even, too like start and stop wiggles. So while you do have that in the original photo, we can lower that one now since we've got the black and white. We do have that, but it's a softer transition here. One, I'd like to see it darker because we did adjust that. But look at the shadow where it fades, like this area. That is a very different shape than the worm that I keep talking about. Watch your shapes when it comes to creases so that they're not just one even line. And you can see like all of these, they're the same width. That is very, very common. And now, let's be fair. This is a 16 by 20. You don't have that much room. So you are going to be somewhat more limited, but I'd like to see some more definition in the shapes there. I'd like to see definitely some more darks in her dress. It's very, I don't want to say stamp, but almost stamp, like, what is the word I'm looking for? Pop art feeling. A little bit more just solid. Flat is the word I'm looking for. You look at the shading on this one. Look at the darkness that we've got in here. Areas that are much, much darker. And you've got some of that, like you started it, but I think you can take it now to the next level. And it's not that anything that you've done is wrong. It feels unfinished to me. Like you've got a great base layer. Now let's get those details in there. And it's not that everything needs tons of details, but we can like you've already put so much work into this. Like it would not take that much more to adjust where your shadows are, to adjust out any of the worm shapes. Whoops, I keep doing that. What is redo? I never remember the, yeah, I don't have enough fingers for it. That's why. The worms, the everything being even in here. These are all even. Try to get variation in there. If we look at the actual wood, look at the shape in here. Try to copy what you see a little bit more as far as the actual shadows and lines in the wood grain there. I think would look great. Let's see. I like your curtain. We've got, again, the same thing here. And I like that you added creases, but we've got the worms. They're too much the same. You want to get variation in that. Let's see. What else do I have on this? Now, as far as the portrait, if you were going for exact, you would certainly want to, it's not exact. But as far as just a really pretty painting of a girl sitting here with emotion, I love how yours look. So that depends on how exact you were trying to get that. But all of this, I would do a little bit more with the shading. Let's see. I actually really like your hair a lot. I like your hair better than the reference photo. Great job there. The highlights in her bangs, watch this. I thought this was a weird Groucho Marx, is that his name? Eyebrow. I would soften that so it's not so big eyebrow right there, if that makes sense. Basically pull the highlight down a little bit. Just make sure it doesn't look like part of the eyebrow, because that's actually supposed to be the shade of her, or the shading of her bangs there. Let's see. And I am being very nitpicky. It's a beautiful painting, so don't get me wrong there. Her nails, that was another thing that stood out. Her nails and her fingers, see, again, were very flat. You've got to go in now and get the shading. Look at the shading on the underside of her nail and her finger. It's darker and then it gets light as it goes up. Darker, light as it goes up. So those are, you know, little things like that are really going to make a big difference in making it look more three-dimensional. Again, 16 by 20, you don't have a lot of room for hands. You did an excellent job getting it to this point on that size, but if you can try to get a little bit more of the shading there, I think that that will strengthen it up quite a bit as well. Her dress overall, a lot of, if you get more darks in there, you can also get some more lights. Actually, her whole dress is pretty much the color of the lightest areas. It's missing a lot. Like from here, I would go through and darken a lot of it up. Yeah, that's most of my tips or details. Now, you had also asked about if you should glaze color. I don't think so. I think with these changes, this is stunning. Your goal was to do a black and white. Let's keep it black and white. I don't see any reason a few shifts on here wouldn't make a difference. But let's say you wanted to still glaze. You can glaze black and white with oils. And if you look at the painting that I did with the little owl recently, it was an oil. That one was straight oil, but I was still glazing oil, so it would be the same as glazing over acrylics. Or the painting I did with tuna, with the canary and the cuttlefish, where I did the acrylic underpainting, where you basically, this I count as your underpainting. I would like to see whether you go over it with acrylics or you go over it with oils. Either way would work. If it were me, I'd go over with acrylics. You got this far with it. I don't think you need that much more work, and acrylics are going to be a lot faster. If it were me, I would probably stick with 16 by 20 is not so big that it's going to be hard for you to blend things out. But it's up to you. Either could look amazing. I would, either way, glaze and get a little bit more with the shading. Tone that curtain in the back a little bit down so that she stands out more. Yeah, just a few, the shadows, all of the shadows really. I mean, the shadows on her arms here. Look at how much darker we made that in Lightroom. And I would darken all of that a bit. I think those would make a huge improvement on what is already a strong piece. This is one of those that you are so close. Like, I would call this my underpainting, and now let's make it really good. So it's good, but let's take it up another level by just working on those values more and a little bit more with the details. But excellent job. And as far as glazing, if I were to do it with oils, it would be oils or acrylics. It's just, with oils, I'm using liquid to water it down, but your white and your black with oils, those are going to be opaque too. So it's not a normal glaze like we would with glazing color. You know, it would mainly be, I would be using oils in that case just because the slower dry time, but they're still opaque. You're not going to be glazing and seeing, you'll see some of the detail you already did, but it will be covering a decent amount just because, again, black and titanium white are typically going to be more opaque. More of the liquid to thin that out so that it flows smoothly. Okay. Next we have that was last time. We've got Linda. Let me just download these. And actually, my whole point with the fish tank was while I mess with this stuff to give you, you can look at the, wow, that is some serious out of focus. What the heck happened there? Hold on. What, did the thing fall off? No. Why are you blurry? Let me see if I can fix that. Oh, that's why. Whoa, look, hey, we're in focus now. There we go. There is my intermission while I download photos and get them over onto. Let's just see if I remember to actually, because last time I did that, I remember there were a few times I forgot to change it back and I started talking and all you could see were my fish. Okay, so let me get these ready. Okay, so here is Linda's. Linda said, this is my sister's dog. I did this in charcoal on Canson Me10s. I was going for realism. I used a second photo to help with her face. Getting the shadows to show her body structure was difficult. I'm not sure how dark I made some of the shadows and her head. I'm not sure about how dark. I didn't read that right. I'm not sure about how dark I made the shadows and her head. Okay, this is awesome. That is actually, when I first saw that, I thought that was a photograph when I was looking at the thumbnail in my email. I'm like, where's the artwork? So beautiful work. God, I love charcoal on kit. I love that the gray of your background, the Canson Me10s, that gray color isn't quite the gray of the black and white. Oh, that's gorgeous together. Okay, so here is your photo. Here is, let's see, I'm just pulling all of these reference. There it was in color. I'm just gonna, oh, no, I'm not. I'm gonna make a mess. That's what I'm gonna do. Let's just put you two on top of each other so I can make one disappear. And this was the other photo. That photo, there's nothing about the toilet paper photo that is helpful to me. I'm not sure where that would be even remotely helpful in anything. Actually, is that actually might make sense. Okay, so let's start with this. This is gorgeous. You did an amazing job. Oh, I love charcoal so much. So we've got the colored version. We've got the black and white version. You did a great job making that black and white first. I really don't think you said what did you say? You had a hard time with the shadows or with the body. Leave it white. Like, okay, so some of these areas that you see on here that are like white, and here is just almost white. Leave it white. Don't feel like you need to force in detail that isn't there. If you can't see the fur, don't feel like you need to force it. I think you did fine there. The collar, everything is great there. There are only two areas that kind of stood out to me that I thought could use a little bit of improvement. I think what you did was you used the nose on this one to see what it looked like when it was light. Don't do that. Leave it dark. See how this is completely dark? Let it be. There's no, why are you being, what are you having an attitude about here? Hold on, my thing is having a, oh, I bet the color is popping up over here somewhere. Give me a second. I probably have a notification on this computer, or this, I've got two monitors going, so. No. What are you doing then? Could not use the brush tool because the chart, oh, that's why. I'm on the wrong, I'm a genius. Okay, here we go. So there are two areas that stood out. This being that dark, let it be that dark. Don't feel, when you're working with a photo and part of that photo, especially in black and white, when part is completely in shadow, and I see this all the time, people do it a lot on pet portraits where one half of the face is completely in shadow and they try to force there to be an eye that they couldn't see almost anything in there. Don't. That actually doesn't look as good as make it dark. If it is dark in the photo, go for it. Make it dark in the reference photo too, or your artwork. You don't need to force detail you can't see. It's going to look more natural, because when I first looked at this, there were two areas that stood out to me that looked a little odd, here and here. Those two spots are, this one here is way too dark. That should be about what, let's see, maybe like this area in here should be about the same value as here. This is just too much. I would lighten that up a lot. And then this needs to be way darker. So if we pull up a new, I'll just show you a little bit on, where's my mouse again? Give me 1 second. Just to give us an idea here of, oh, why do you always do that to me? What we want the value to be versus what it actually is. This, by the way, you should be very proud of yourself. This is excellent. Okay, let me drag this onto the screen. So if we look at how light this area is of the face, there versus what we want it to be. I mean, it's like, go black. If it's supposed to be as dark can go, it's going to look better. Let it be dark. Let it be in the shadow. Don't feel like you have to force. I mean, you did that with the ear, so it would make sense that you would darken more of this. I mean, you would still see a hint over the nose of the highlight, a hint of the highlight in here. The rest is in black. Let it be in black. It looks weird because you're trying to force something that you couldn't see in the photo and it isn't quite right because you can't see it. You're basically working without a reference photo. And I know you got the other reference photo, the one with the toilet paper, but it's not the right angle. It's not the right lighting. It doesn't make sense for this one. So I would not try to force that in there. And then the same thing when we get into this, there's the lightest area. The lightest area of this should be like that. I mean, that's a pretty big difference. And then the darkest area, you've got really dark, big difference there. So those are the only two areas I would change. I love everything else about this. I would not change anything. God, you did such a good job on that ear. I like your ear better than the photo on this one here. Whoops. This ear, wow. I think that's my favorite part. The ear and the collar and tag. You could put a little bit more highlighting in the tag, but that's getting ridiculously nitpicky. Like, this is amazing. But one of the things I don't like on this looks really smooth. It's overly blended. There's no hint of fur, which is fine if it's more in these colors. But because it's so dark, it doesn't look like part of the neck. It's like, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't feel like it's a part of this picture, if that makes sense. Like, it's really standing out to me. So by toning that down, put the hint of a little bit of fur in there will help. And then just make this way darker. That I think will make like night and day difference on this piece. You did such a good job. Those couple of little tweaks, oh my gosh, such good work. Okay. Let me close these. And we are back to the fish. Well, I get the next person's. Next we have from Karen. Let me download these. Again, these are all basically first impressions because I've not seen any of these yet until right now. I'm seeing them all at the same time as you guys. Let me pull them up. Give me 1 second. By 1 second, I mean lots of seconds. That one, oh, nope. Whoa. This is crazy. You guys are going to probably be as shocked as I am, especially shrinking it down even more. Okay. Let's go back to the main ones. Karen said, hi, Lisa. I would love to know what you think. Here is an original and the reference photo. Okay, that's all she said. It's a 36 by 48. So this is huge, which gives you lots of room for detail. So genius. And who did I say this was? This is Karen. Wow. Okay. My first complaint is going to be the same thing I'm going to complain about every single time. When you take your photos of your work, especially put so much work into this, put as much work into the photos. Look at this whole section where it's just not, it's down at an angle. If you're going to take your photos at an angle, do it because it was staged that way, where the background's all pretty and all of that. But in this case, I mean, it's the side of, is it a door frame? I don't know what's going on over here. Like, get straight on with that as much as you can. Oh, this is super accurate though. Even with my little complaints, I don't have much. This is so accurate. And this is a challenge because the glare, I can tell this is I think it is. It looks like the glare of taking the photo is slightly lightening or washing this out more than what it is. I suspect in person that is a richer color because everything else is rich, and it looks like this might be hitting a glare right in this area that I'm pointing at that you can't see. That's super helpful. Hold on 1 second. What is going on with my mouse? There you are. There we go. Wow, that is amazing. This is such a good example. I don't have a lot to comment on because the changes, most of the changes or the small things that stand out to me, I like yours better than the reference photo, so I don't have a ton. There's a few things. Okay. It takes me a minute to really look at it and see. This, I believe you said, was acrylics, right? Yes, it's acrylics, 36 by 48. So huge. Again, very huge. When you work this large, the nice thing is, whoops, that is not what I meant to do. Look at how much detail you can get when you work this large. when you blow it up, it's not as much. Like it is a lot of detail, but you've got room for it when you work this big. So if you're somebody who likes tons of detail, this is such a good way to do that, is working. And again, 36 by 48, that's big. But she's got the texture in the tongue. She's got all of that texture. She's working huge. So that is super helpful when you want that level of detail. I talk about that a lot. If you want a lot of detail, go big. But if you are a beginner, don't go this big. You're basically wasting, I don't want to say you're wasting a canvas because you're learning, but where are you going to store a badly painted canvas? When you're a beginner, it's going to be bad. We'll be realistic here. You don't need 36 by 48 inches of bad. That is not fun to store. Ask me how I know. It might be from personal experience. So working, once you get better, go ahead and work larger. But when you're first starting, I would do studies, like maybe an eye on an 8 by 10, like you can get canvas pads and practice that way, but do smaller studies where you can get a lot of detail. But when you get to where you are, you're more comfortable with whatever medium you're working in, working larger gives you more room to accomplish something like this. Now, one of the things that we've got different here from the reference photo is the lighting along this area. It stands out a lot more. On the reference photo, let me shrink this down. So these are more side by side. So the reference photo, we've got two things. One, I really like on highlights and such, ultramarine blue for the shadows. I just love the look of ultramarine blue up against your oranges. So that is being nitpicky. I might go a little bit of a little bit closer to purple on the color wheel for the blue than what you've got here. It looks like it's mixing in more with the browns. Again, that's going to be personal preference, super nitpicky, but it stands out. It looks, I don't know, it just makes the shadow look more shadowy and kind of glowy. I don't know. This would be more, actually, we got this little guy. Let's pull that up. I'll show you what I mean here. So here is the blue for the shadows on that one versus yours are a little bit more gray. Like pull, this one's a bit more of a greenish blue. These ones aren't quite the same. Whereas this is a little bit closer, like it's a little bit closer to purple on the color wheel. It's not really all the way up there, but a little bit more color saturation there. It will make the oranges pop. So that would be one thing that I think you can do that would improve on this even more. The other, see, and this goes back to personal preference. I don't know that it needs it. I mean, I can nitpick that we've got back here. I kind of like this highlight. Adds a little bit more depth as it moves back. Yours kind of just drops off. It feels a little bit unfinished, but also at the same time, just kind of artsy. So are you going more artsy because you like the look of just this harsh line? Or are you going for super, super realistic that it looks like a photograph? If it were me, usually I prefer the artsy. Something that's like, this is a painting. I want you to know this is a painting and I made an artistic choice here. I think that's a good one. But so, if you're going for super realistic because you didn't really comment, that would be one thing. This adds more depth. See how it's darker up here? And as you get back, and then you've got this row where it's then lighter as it moves back. And then again, the out of focus background you've got is fine. Personal preference there. I love the water. Yeah, that's really all I've got is maybe a little bit more blue, but this is so, so gorgeous and a great example of when you work that large, the level of detail that you can get in there. And I actually you have simplified the spots. The reference photo is more speckled and more spots. I really like yours. I like yours a lot more. You've got more of the definite blues down in this area. But yeah, I don't really have a lot on that, but work on getting good photos of your work. And this is going to be a huge challenge when you're working this large. That's one of the worst parts about working on a really large canvas is good luck finding a spot where you can get a reference photo where you don't have a glare coming from somewhere. This one would be very difficult for me to photograph that size with the darker areas because it is going to pull up reflections. So usually I will take multiple photos. Sometimes I can get like half the photo to be not in reflection. So I'll take a photo that way, flip it over, keep the camera on a tripod so it's as exact as possible as the previous positioning, flip the painting over, take a photo there so both bottom halves were in like the same lighting, if that makes sense, and then Photoshop them together. I've had some luck doing that when the painting was just so big I absolutely I couldn't avoid the glare. But those are some tips there. And I'm assuming that this is the glare. If not, if it's not the glare causing this area on the shadow to be kind of dull, then I would make that, what do I have it over here? I would darken that a bit more. If you can hype that up just a bit, look at what a difference that can make just by pulling that a little bit darker. But I suspect that it's looking that way just because of the glare. I could be wrong. If it's not from the glare, hype up, get those darks a bit darker. The lights are light enough. I would just darken the darks a little, and especially on the side of the body over here, I think that could also, you know, a little bit deeper, not much, just enough that it doesn't look like it's being washed out from a glare. But I really do think it's the glare, so we'll go with that. I think the biggest challenge you're going to have when it comes to painting, and especially working the size, is getting good photos. This one is slightly out of focus in a few areas when I zoom in. Like I think, or maybe it's just a cell phone photo. I don't know. I'm not sure what you took it with, but it is. Yeah, Karen says it is the glare. That's going to be your challenge, getting good photos, and you're going to have to take it. There was one place I lived where if I went outside in the afternoon when the sun was over here, like behind a fence next to the garage, like there was this perfect area where I could kind of avoid the glare if the driveway didn't reflect up on it, depending on how the lighting was. I mean, here in my house, I've got a dark hallway that if I open one window down the way, I can get decent. You got to get tricky on how you're going to get your photos, and that I think is going to be your biggest challenge right now, because this is big enough you can get this super high resolution photo and you can make huge prints of it, but you've got to get that good photo first. So that is going to be your biggest challenge. I think you've pretty much mastered painting. Now you get to master taking photographs of the paintings. Beautiful work. Okay, we will go back to the tank for intermission. And we have from Teresa. Let me save these. And drag these over. Okay. So Teresa said, Abby is a Maltese I used to own. I did this memorial drawing a few years ago. There were a couple of main problems I had. Getting the hair soft and luscious looking, and I did the bokeh background after the portrait and brought it into the front, which was probably a mistake to have done. I wanted to do another drawing of her, but getting the white hair to show up was such a challenge. Looking back, I'm sure it has a lot to do with the lack of contrast. I'm learning. Any other advice? And be critical. I can take it. Well, Teresa's a friend of mine, so I can be pretty critical with her. Although she's like the sweetest lady, so I wouldn't want to hurt her feelings at the same time. Okay, so we've got that. Here we go. Okay, so Teresa, yeah, I don't like the bokeh. I'm not going to lie. I don't like it at all. I would not do bokeh here. I would do a solid color. I think the bokeh is taking attention away from her completely. And you do want contrast, but right now on this, and it's a weird crop at that. If I were to crop this piece, like let's say I was going to do this as a painting myself, I would crop this. I don't want, let's see. You're just gonna crop that on down. So one challenge here, now I know when it's a memorial piece, it's gonna be a lot more challenging to you can't go get two new photos. So you're going to work with what you have. That's closer. I would probably spend more time playing around with getting this perfect, but that is closer to the cropping I would do. If we look at your artwork here, this is what I often talk about floating dog head. I do not like portraits myself, and I've done them, so I get it. But the more I've done them, I've realized, oh, look good. See how you've got the background going all the way around the dog. We've got it under. It doesn't make sense. So I would not include that. Let me pull this back up. So here it looks like, well, actually it may not be floating head. You've kind of included her feet, but she's in such a weird position that it looks like floating dog head on the reference photo. So you're going to run into a challenge if you want to include that much. But the big thing, let's talk about, let me add another layer here. New layer. What did I just put that layer on? Oh, here we go. Okay. So when we look at this, we've got a couple of things going on. And one is I think you're trying to put too many sections of fur where it doesn't belong. If we look at yours, let's do the same thing here. Layer, new layer. Okay. See how you forced in bits of fur? We really can't see any of that on the reference photo. If we look at the reference photo, this is almost solid white. There's a little bit of shading, but it's not hairs. It's like a very subtle changes in shadows there. And that is what I would do. Redo. That is what I would actually do on the artwork. I would not try to get these flowy lines going all the way down. What I would do, let's pull you back up in the middle here. I would focus on these main shapes. We've got a few individual hairs, but look at how we've got these definite shapes. The fur here is separate here. This area and this area is separate. And this whole area inside here, that is all dark, like really dark compared to this area. One of the biggest problems with yours is everything's almost the same. Almost the same lightness. There's very little change. Now up in here, you would get some of that subtleness. So this is fine. But when you get down into here, look at how dark that really needs to be. Where's my handy little box? Look how dark that is versus how dark yours is. Like go a lot darker. You've got a lot of that orange in here. And yeah, there is some of that orange, but it's darker. It's like a darker tan. Get those darks in there. And it's scary when you're working on white fur, but normally now, midday, sun overhead, you're going to be a little bit more overexposed than other times. But getting, there's very little white on here. Let's look at the actual white on her fur for a second here. Very little is white. Most of this, so we've got white here, white on a lot of this area, and white out here. Oh, little bit of white up here. Little bit in here. That's it. There's no other white, like, okay, let's go with, I might pull a little bit of white highlight in there, but even that's not really white. There's no white in there. What we actually have, we can pull our handy little box up. Let's get rid of all that and my box, which I've lost. What we actually have are, let's see, we've got a grayish blue, a little bit darker grayish blue, and I would probably hype up that contrast even more, make those darks a little bit darker. But yeah, you don't have that much white, whereas on yours, everything is mid-range. Like you don't have, your lights can't look light enough because your darks aren't dark enough. And it makes it look everything's very bland. I would, on her portrait, actually do a solid color for the background. Blue, like a dark gray. Like a dark gray would be beautiful to make her really stand out. Or a mid-tone gray, like medium to dark. I think those would all look great on her. But you can take, I don't know what the original photo is. If you took this on, like with a DSLR and you have the original file, we can take it into Lightroom. You can still take it into Lightroom, but you are limited on how, let's see. You're limited, whoops, wrong one, on what you can edit. If you've got the original raw file, it's much, much easier to change these things. Let's see, edit. What am I looking for? My brain just shut down. Adjustments, curves. Let's just do curves because it's fast. So if we take our darks darker, our lights lighter, you know, you can do a little bit more there and look at how much more that would make her stand out. I wouldn't necessarily make the inside of her mouth as dark as this is doing. I would probably leave her eyes light and her mouth a little bit lighter, but you can play around with the hair to get a little bit more contrast in there with the darks and the lights to give her a lot more depth. I think that would, I'm glad that you want to do this one again, because I think that you can do, you're good, but let's take it even better or make it a lot better. So solid color background. I would not do the bokeh on this. Part of it is she doesn't have a lot of detail. Bokeh, and I've done this on pieces before where it's like, I mean, I guess it was okay, but I have done it on pieces where I know it would have been a stronger piece had I not done bokeh. Like it just took, it was too distracting, and it was a black and white, or, you know, graphite. It still, I just felt like it pulled too much attention to the background and not to the subject. So sometimes bokeh, I think, adds, sometimes it takes away. And this is one of those cases that it takes away, like me and my, I think, was it a giraffe? I forgot what it was that I didn't like it on as much. But yeah, the bokeh is too much. I would think with her coloring, with the background, if you can pick something that's in her coat that you plan to use, the bluish kind of purpley grays would be great. With colored pencil, like there's a lavender gray that's really pretty that would work with her, but just something solid, or that maybe is a slight fade, but not so definite to circles. And then as far as making the fur, it's really looking at the chunks. Chunks of every, pay attention to our chunks of fur, where those are, instead of trying to do these more long sections. You've got some of the chunks are in there, but there's just not enough shading in between where those go. So yeah, that would be my advice. We need more contrast. We need the darks darker. We need to pay attention to the chunks, and the background needs to be something way less busy. So yeah, I think you are on the right track. I think this will look amazing for you to do again, especially now that you've had even more experience. I think that'll come out really good. Okay, next. Let's go back to that, and let me save these. Oh, we've got two. We'll do quick or just one of them. Let me see. Let me look at these really quick and see if I want to do both, because we've got to get through a bunch of these tonight. Okay, I'm showing this just because it's good and I want to show off how good of a job this artist did. Let's see. So we've actually got two. Let's see. Dear Lisa, you may or may not want to critique these. I included two different portraits because I could not choose between them. I know you can't do both, and if you have others and neither of these make that cut, it's okay. Let's see. I've been doing portraits since the late 60s, early 70s. I stopped for a while in the 80s and 90s due to work and family. I'm retired now. Let's see. Started out in pastels in the 70s. These are 11 by 14 colored pencils and pan pastel on Lux archival sanded paper, some powder blender, and brush and pencil fixative. I like to get realism out of the pieces. I know I still need to work on a lot, but I would welcome any comments, corrections that might help. for one thing, I don't think I spend enough time on them. I get anxious and I want to get them done. Oh, trust me, I with you on that sometimes, like the gallery glass windows I just did. Allie, okay. And this is from Larry. Okay. I had to show, like, wow, I haven't seen these yet. And that is just amazing. I like that there's almost like an old like it is an old photo, obviously, that you're working from, but you captured that in the colored pencil, and I don't see that often. Like, it looks to me like an old colorized photo. Like, it looks, it's awesome. Let's talk about just accuracy when it comes to that. We've got her mouth here is almost at this angle coming this way instead, whoops, that's not right either, instead of more straight down. So that is my first thing that I noticed on this one. Her upper lip would need to be a bit more up. So, you know, just little things. And now this is me being nitpicky because this is freaking, I love how this looks. I love your shadows in here around the pearls are way too dark. And I love it. So sometimes things don't have to be accurate to look amazing. I think that's part of what's giving me that older antique colorized photo. That is awesome. So as much as I'm like, it's not super realistic, I don't care. I love it. So I wouldn't change that at all. I think that looks amazing. The pearl necklace here, though, look how this ended. In the photo, what happened is it faded. It would have continued, but because of the contrast there, you just can't see it. I would have continued round that and then round that and then round, like actually continue that on that side because it looks a little weird there. The shape. Let's see. Watch the shadow in the nose that we don't end up with raisins. So as much as I like the over shading of the pearls, it doesn't work on noses. That is one area you want to tone down a little bit. So what we should have is more of a shadow in here, like a mid-tone going in. And the same thing, it kind of lightens. There's a little bit of a shadow, but not quite that dark. So I would adjust that a little bit. Her nostril would come, looks like a little bit further down, not much. Again, that's me being nitpicky. And you see this side of her mouth should be at an angle. You actually got that. The upper lip is at the right angle because she almost looks like she's smirking. The bottom lip is the one that's a little bit too, I'm over exaggerating, but see how it's moving like that way. Where the upper lip kind of is, but the bottom lip should crop out some here. Like it should even out a little bit less on this side here. So again, this is me being nitpicky on just the accuracy. But man, does that look good. You've got your shadows there. That looks good. When it comes to the hair, you've got a lot of little lines in here. Work more, and you've done it on some areas, but work a little bit more on the definite, like here we would have, actually we'll draw that on this one. Here we would have a highlight, a little bit of a shadow, then it curves around a little bit more. You know, just watch those main shapes when you get into curls. For yours, you've got this whole area that is curled back, and you've got the shadows and highlights nicely. But if you're going by the reference photo, we've got different shapes in there on those curls. Aren't one big curl going back. You've got several waves in there, so I would have included more of those little areas. Again, I'm just being nitpicky. I don't have a lot more on that one. That one I really like. These are just little things. The big one, I would fix the pearl on that section. The lip, this side especially should be up a little bit more here. Yeah, let's see. Anything else I want to point out? You've got her chin a little bit more pointed than it probably was in person because the shadow is so harsh there. At this angle, her chin is kind of up here. And you've got almost like this side, and it may just be the angle, but hers, the chin is a little bit more pointed. So that would kind of pull up a little bit. Again, just going, these are just little minor things. What I like to do is put the reference photo, put everything upside down. When you flip everything upside down, you will suddenly notice things you just didn't notice before. Things start to really stand out, whether it be the shape of that. Like even right now, I can see this needs to be flattened out. I didn't even notice that. What am I on? I didn't even notice when I looked at it the other direction. This could be flattened out just a bit. That one actually is, this would come down just a bit, but up a little bit higher here. Like you just start noticing these tiny little things to perfect a portrait when you flip it upside down. But no, you are doing a wonderful job here. You should be very proud of that. The second one, let's see if we can go through it quickly because there were two. Good likeness. Watch the mascara is a little bit heavy-handed, and she is wearing mascara, but her mascara is on the heavy-handed side anyway, like a little bit. This sounds mean, but I'm a girl. I do makeup. I get it. It's getting a little bit too clumpy. So when you then over exaggerate that in the artwork, it's like, whoa, that's really clumpy, if that makes sense. I would certainly soften that down a little bit. Don't add extra because she's already got a little bit on, like it's already a little on the thick side. So that would be one tip there. Let's see. Wrinkles. Watch this. She's got a little one here. You made yours a lot bigger. Now, this is something that you want to watch, especially with women, because we typically are not trying to look older. But every line you add, what do they say? It adds like 10 years. I think that's to do with more animation and such, but it still is true. You've got to be careful with where and how you add those lines because you can age somebody a lot by putting, especially women, when you, I mean, it does with men too, but you guys all look better with wrinkles. We look worse. Not fair. But we try to avoid that as much as possible. So when you're doing women, I would not make shadows on the face, on the wrinkles. I would not make those deeper or larger than what's there, especially if you're taking commissions, because usually the women aren't fans of that. Let's see. Eyebrows are a little bit on the green side of things. I would use more of like a Van Dyke brown would probably be my go-to for that with a little bit of Caput So you're really moving into more closer to purple than yellow, if that makes sense, or green on the other side. So watch that when doing blonde hair or eyebrows. I mean, where if she's a natural blonde, our eyebrows don't show up very well. So we have to darken ours anyway. So we're typically going to go a little darker and it's not going to be the same color as our hair. So little tip there when you're doing blonde or working on somebody who has blonde hair, it's normal for our eyebrows to not be the same color as our hair because we're having to darken them so that we look like we have some. Ask me how I know. But no, great, great work. I would almost, so the black that you're using in here, I would like to see more deep purples, like dark. You'd still mix black in with it. But instead of being a flat black, what if you use, and I would do that the same way when I like black. I know a lot of people are like, don't use black pencils or black paint or whatever. I use black, but I mix it with other colors. What if you started out with a purple color, a dark purple, like Nightshade? Derwent Lightfast Nightshade is a great one. It's a dark, dark purple, or Derwent Lightfast Purple is a great color. It's a little bit more of like a reddish purple. Do that. And then I go over with black for the darkest bits, but it gives you a little bit more depth, even though there is a lot of black. I see what you're looking at. She has black in there. I would definitely use black, but it's going to give you a little bit more so it's not so flat. And that's more being artsy than being accurate to the photo, but it'll make your work look more realistic, which makes no sense because it's purple and there's no purple in there. But if you can get some purples into, and you wouldn't really want to go with blues because with the hair, you've got these oranges and yellows, you know, your gold, don't use yellow and blonde, which you obviously, oh, you did use a little bit of yellow. Whatever, you did a good job and it worked. But I wouldn't jump to a lot of blues for the shadows when you're working with hair this color. Jump to purples. Purples with blonde hair works great for your shadows, but you can also get the reflection of, it looks like it's the reflection from her shirt you've got in this area. You can get a little bit more depth with the reddish tone, so maybe some Caput Mortem, a little bit of an orangey tone in there would look nice, but that's going to blend really nicely if you blended that so it fades into the purple. I'm telling you, it'll actually look more realistic, but the black, I see why you did it though, because your reference photo has that. Watch when you get into too many individual strands in here because it'll make the hair look stringier than what it really is. Work more, and you've got the clumps and clusters, but I probably wouldn't put as many of these individual ones because it starts looking a little too stringy. A few like you did up in here is great, a few in here, but the ends of her hair, I would probably not put that much in there. I would go ahead and lighten up the lights of her face. So in her cheeks, I would make these, everywhere where you've got light, I would go a little bit lighter, a little bit more, and that's going to give you a little bit more dimension, make her look more three-dimensional there. And then again, we can come back to slight accuracy, like her chin would be a little bit more pointed. If we pull that down in here. So, and that's just getting to little picky things, but beautiful work. I really like the teeth. You did a great job getting the shading on her teeth. The reference photo, the teeth are straight white, which obviously you knew not to do. You did a great job making that shade, the shadows in there. Beautiful work. Really, I love too the color you got on the eyes, getting the dimension in her eyes so they're not just flat one color. Beautiful. Really good work. Okay, let's move on. Come on, mouse, where are you? And then this would be another one too, where I would do the same thing. Always, when portraits are my must always have a stage where they are upside down, you will start noticing so many minor little things that you'll want to adjust. Like the lighting stands out to me more on here, where I would pull out highlights on her face, make it a little bit brighter, her cheeks, basically. Now, your name's Larry, so I'm assuming you're a man. You probably don't have a ton of experience with makeup. If that is the case, look at women. You can go, and women can do the same thing. When you understand the way that we do contouring for our face, where we put the highlights with our makeup, we're basically faking face shape. Or in my case, I ate too many cheesecakes and my face is poofier than I'd like it to be. I can force in cheekbones with the right kind of shading. So if you learn where, go and look up makeup tutorials or makeup, like even an image of where women typically will put highlights on our, I don't personally use those much, but you can look up where we would if you were to use highlighters on your face, and that's where I would pull out the highlights on hers. So the upper, where we put highlights where the light should be hitting, the cheek, the nose, I would just brighten all of that, the tip of the chin, just a little bit more, pull those lights out. Your skin tone, by the way, too, beautiful job on your colors there. Wonderful work. Okay, next. Okay. I need to move through these a bit faster because we have a lot to get through still. I'm too wordy. No one is surprised. And I have that reference photo. Let me see if I can find it. Because it wasn't included, but it's from one of my lessons. So yeah, where'd it come back? I just saw you. That'll work. So this is from one that I found the reference photo on Unsplash. And let me go back to where I was. So we have from Brooke, who said, use your reference photo and your class, new to brushwork, been playing with abstract fluid art for 3 years and branched out to the very scary world of realism. This is my second brush painting with you. Wow, good job. I did the rooster class with you as my first realism brush painting. I am pleased with the results, but I think I might have put a little bit too much winter weight on the bird and not unlike myself. We just learned contouring. You can fix that. Let's see. So my goal is to make it look real. I feel like your teaching style and techniques work well for me. Yay! Send it for Patreon. Thanks to your presence on YouTube, I'm seriously impressed with your skills in art and teaching style. I'm so excited to explore your Patreon. Thank you. Say hi to the puppers. I will. Awesome. Okay, so this is Brooke. And let's pull, why is that all that much behind? So we've got, come on, load. Don't be weird. There we go. Okay, we are good. Okay, so here is our second time doing brushwork with me. That is awesome. You are doing a great job. Like, seriously, you're doing a great job. I think he has extra toes, though. No, he doesn't. The white highlights are too bright on his toes. That's the first thing that stands out to me. I'm like, wait, are there extra toes in there? You don't need to outline. You want to be a little more subtle with your highlights. Oh, you're doing a great job. So really at this point, yeah, he's a little on the poofy side. You can get away with it. That still can work. But your highlights are too like, hi, I'm titanium white. Let's tone that down to more of, in this case, we've got a blue, like a light blue. You could just glaze over a lot of that, will really help. And just pay attention to the location. Like here, that black actually comes way down further here and through the back. Your white highlights can just, they're just, if you glaze blue over a lot of this, that's going to fix a lot. Now here, you've got this row goes straight back. It actually is here and it stops and you've got individuals here. So as you get going, and I know you're new, so I'm not going to be as picky as I was like on our previous portrait because he's got a lot of experience, but pay attention to these little things like that. Will make your work look that much more realistic. Whoops. Just though, like here, see how it's here and here, we've got a big feather, big feather, big feather, little feathers. Well, I didn't even pay attention to the direction there. Whereas here, we've just kind of, they're almost all the same going back. And those are things that the more you paint, the more you're going to notice. When you're newer to this, it is completely normal to not even, I'll say something, you'll follow me along in a tutorial. And I do this all the time when I worked with students in person, where I would come over and point something out that needed to be adjusted. And they're like, how did you even see that? I didn't even see that there was a difference between mine and the photo. That really does come with time and with practice. That is one of those things that the more you paint, the more you draw, the more you notice. So those little things that I just pointed out, be aware that you're trying to notice them, but also don't kick yourself if you're not noticing them right away. Like that does come with time. Same thing we did with portraits, flipping it upside down. Also, I think it was Larry was his name. Thank you so much for putting those attached side to side. That just made it so easy for me to flip them both at the same time. You made my lazy happy. But like the shadow over the eye, I would make that more curved and make it blue. You don't really have white. Same thing. You get highlights, but not white here. I would pull some more moss as you get into here a little bit, but it's the same. Actually, you know what's funny? Your moss is the right color. You've got this nice aqua blue, this light blue, and that's closer to what you would get in your reflection, your glazing. And by a glaze, what I mean is a little bit of paint and some water. Thin it out with water so it's translucent. You can just wash that right over these. So what will happen, it'll actually be similar to, we'll just leave that to make an example. If I were doing this with painting, see how I'm tinting the color? And the more paint, the more opaque it will be. You do not want white mixed in with your glaze. You would put the glaze down first, you would put the white down first, let it dry, and then you can glaze color over it anywhere where it needs to. Now this is not the right color, but you can see what I mean, how I'm tinting the color, I'm toning all that down. That's essentially what a glaze is. That color, by the way, would be terrible. Do not use what I just did. It just happens to be what I had up. But that's what a glaze is by toning that down, and that would make a big difference. A lot of this photo, the glare is just hitting it so harsh. It's probably image adjustment. Come on, pull up, curves. So it's probably a lot closer to that in person where the glare is not hitting it, which when you get a good photo, your work will look so much better. And a good photo of your work usually requires some editing. I actually can't get good photos with my phone. My current phone, it wants to soften things out in a way that I hate this. Samsung, I think, what is it, the S22 Ultra? I don't know, it's a couple years old. It has the worst camera of any phone I've, how it got worse than the previous model, whatever. But anyway, if you're using a good camera, you're still probably going to have to edit I use Photoshop and Lightroom to make it look more like the artwork. Now, when you Photoshop or use Lightroom to edit the photograph of your work, don't make it look better than what it really looks like. I want to make it look like what the artwork looks like. If you were to do something, let's say I really darkened it up and you looked at that and thought, wow, that's so much better. Mine's not that much darker. Then go make yours darker. So you can take a photo, do some editing, and if you like how it looked when it was dark, go ahead and go back and make yours darker, but I wouldn't upload the unrealistic version of your work. When I do the Photoshop, it's always to make it look as much as possible to the original. So just a little tip there. But yeah, the photograph, I'm certain in this, I mean, I can see the glare all over the black, so that makes it harder. So slow down a little bit. Try to pay more attention to the shape of things. I mean, in here, look at how the black, oops, that's not what I meant to do at all. Nope, that is also not what I meant to do at all. But see, just the shape, we're missing the black in this section here. Like we've got a lot of areas where by doing that, it's just going to make everything look a lot better. We're just missing some of the shape, so it'll look more real. It'll look more realistic. So anyway, there we go. Those are my tips for him. Just remember, white is never truly white. You'll have a few white highlights, but white is typically going to be blues or browns, purples. It's going to pick up what's around it. Now, the exception for that, I'll talk while I pull this up. The exception for me with that is going to be if there's a green background, like I've done white horses where they were in grass and there was a green background. And having the green reflect on the horse, even though that's how the reference photo looked, it did not look good in the artwork. So sometimes you've got to make a judgment call there. But even then, I would have gone with blue instead of green. I still want a definite base color. Your white is just going to be your brighter highlights. Not sure why there are two of this one. Hold on, let me get these pulled over. Okay, missing one more. Wow, this is beautiful. Okay. You can go down. Let's go back to the main. So this is from Yellowbird. Said, I had problems figuring out the best way to do the pectoral feathers. Started at the bottom, worked my way up. Goal is to do him. Be happy, not frustrated. I combined the two reference photos. Okay. So we've got you. You. And you. Let's make you a bit smaller here. Beautiful photos. Okay. Your color saturation would be my first thing to work on. Now, this may be a case that it almost looks like your camera lens was dirty. And I don't know if the art is really that way, but I'm suspecting the camera lens was dirty or the lighting was weird, because I bet you that this actually looks a bit more like this. What am I doing? Adjustments, curves. If it's not like this, then that's how I would make it. Like, look at what a difference if we can get the color saturation a little bit more, less dirty camera lens. So that would be my first thing. The next, let's pretend that this is really what because man, that is gorgeous. In either case, we need some more feathers. Oops, not what I meant to do. We need some more of the white. In either case, down here, I would pull just a little bit further. It's minor, but I think it would improve. I would take for these feathers, darken the shadows. Did it say, I didn't even pay attention. Did it say, so I said Yellowbird. It didn't say the size or the medium, did it? No. Okay. I would darken, I'm guessing colored pencil or pastels, probably colored pencil. I don't know if this is on sanded paper. I don't know. But I would get your you've got the feathers are already there. Make your life, like, The hard part's done. Now we just need to get some of those shadows in there, and you can see where they are, whichever photo you go with. The photos or the feathers, the shadows mostly on the same side. So I would just pull in some of those darks in there, really define some of those better. Now be careful in here. It's really easy to get to where we're just kind of quickly going all over. Be very controlled in that. Pay really close attention to the direction, because like here, we've got a lot of them going out in this direction. In neither photo is that the case. In both of these, we've got, look at the actual direction of these feathers. They're way more straight. I mean, slight curve, but not a lot. Look at the direction. None of them are really sweeping back this way. So that's something that I would watch. That direction. You don't need them to be exact, but we do really want to watch the direction. Now in here too, this is another, and you don't have to hear me say this because usually I talk about how almost everything in nature is slightly curved. These ones are a bit more straight. Go more stiff on these can be a little bit longer and a lot straighter than what you've got. Will give you a more natural feel there. Our highlight on either one of these, you've got this highlight with the blues right in through here. This whole area would have that highlight, get that in there. You've got this bluish gray that continues on the nose. Like you could do a little bit more. Basically, you've got the hard work done. I would just maybe spend another 3 or 4 hours on it. For those little touches. Now, either way, as it is, stunning. So it's beautiful as it is. If you are just done with it and you don't want to do anymore, that's fine. But I really do think that a little bit more with the highlight, like in here, we've got some blues right on that shoulder there. Here we've got feathers that are curving this way, and then we've got a few little guys that overlap that way. So just these little details where those feathers are like slowed down on them. I feel the way that you did it is very pretty. Go lay down. No, we're not going to stand there. Go lay down. Gibson came to visit. He can't come in though because Tuna's free. But anyway, Tuna's my canary. If your goal is to do something like that, if this is a smaller piece and you're just doing something really quick, then getting the hint of the feathers is fine. But if you want it to look even more realistic, then slowing down a bit more and being more controlled over the direction of those feathers, just really look at your reference photo and get the contrast in there more. Get those darks a lot darker. I think will make a big, like in here, in these feathers in here, we've got those definite shadows. Just darken up with what you've already got in there. In this case, where you're getting into this section, I'm talking about the different shape. You're probably not going to do a lot to change that at this point because they're already in there. They're fine. That's just tip for moving forward. But I would pull more shadows on the back, like darken up, get the darks that you've got in there, darken that area up there too. I think that that would look really good. But beautiful, beautiful work. Okay. Great choice on those reference photos too. Stunning all around. Okay. Oh, wait. Deb, was that yours? If that's the case, she didn't say, but she's actually, if it's the same Deb I'm thinking of from Discord, she's actually only been on my Patreon since what, October-ish? August, like not that long. Like she has come so far, so fast. Was that, I didn't even notice. Is that who that was? I didn't really look at the signature. I don't know, I can't read it. Okay, wow, that's, again, she's one that her work, her progression, watching her on Patreon, she's been posting on Discord a lot, which if you're in our one of our Patreon members, you got access to our Discord so you can share your work, get advice from others. We chat about everything over there. Books, animals, art, whatever. We can share our sketchbooks. It's fun. We've even got a section for plants. But her progression, I'm sorry to throw you on the spot here. Her progression over the last few months, like since what, October-ish, August, I forget when. Oh man, like she draws constantly. She is constantly making new art, and you can see though because she's working so fast and doing so much, how fast she has grown. Wow. I did not even realize that was hers. That is impressive. I'm even more impressed now. Okay. Next. Oh, I've got to move things along. We have Aline, who is my book spider and nail polish buddy and planner buddy. We have all the same hobbies. Let's see. Let me pull this up. Oh, I forgot to pull up the tank. Whatever. You don't get a tank intermission right now because I'm being lazy. So there is this. She said, this is my first try at Inktense. I fell in love with it, but I had some issues. I'm going for realism, but it ended up grainy. I couldn't figure out how to get the small details with the white. Also, layering was somewhat of a curve for me, especially on the head. So critique away, give it all you got. I love Inktense, but need to learn what I did wrong here. I don't suppose you included a reference photo. There we go. And we've got the reference. And let's pull these up. So Inktense it's water-soluble ink. It is not quite like watercolor. It doesn't reactivate the same way. There's definitely some differences between the two mediums. But if you're unfamiliar with what Inktense is, that is what she used here. Okay. So with the layering, oh, great. I love how the feathers looked around the beak and the body, how that faded out. Great job there. I'm assuming that you use the Inktense blocks, and looks like you use the blocks and the pencils, which is my preferred method to go, that's for sure. You get the best of both worlds there. Is she here? Just so she can tell me if she did use both. Oh, yeah. I don't know. Okay, so let's see. We have, for some more shading, let's start with the beak. We can get some more detailing. Now, you said you couldn't get the detailing with the white. So the white Inktense pencil, I don't want to call it useless, except that it's useless. It's not the most, maybe not useless, because I do use it for highlighting, but it lightens things, but it's not white. At all. If I want something to be white with Inktense, like really pull it back to white, I'm going to use the Inktense block. I'm going to thin it down with water. I just use it kind of like a watercolor pan. And with a decent amount of water, make my ink mixture that way, and then paint it on. When it goes on, it'll be translucent, and it'll dry opaque, which is kind of, it's like an adventure, because you don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes you're going to need more layers, and sometimes you're then going to tone it down. So let's say this was mine. Where would I take this from here? His eye needs to be bigger, so there's that. But like pull all of that. Look at just putting that. What a difference in his expression. We've got some shading areas here, so I would do some glazing with. Let's see. I would probably do purples. For glazing, because it's a yellow color. So typically when I glaze with yellow or like do shadows, I'm going to go with my purples. Magenta would be a good one. Those are my preferred colors there. Or even some of these orangey colors that used in here would be like the orangey browns would work. But get some of those shading in there so that it's not so flat. Right now it's really, really flat. Darken this up a little bit. And some of this in here, you've just got a lot of shading. Now, this is where the white pencil would work. When we look at the white highlights, if you push really hard with that white pencil, do not go over it with water though. You can lighten this up in here, but it's not going to be really white. If you want any of that to be white, you need to use the block and thin it down with water. Now, if it's a big enough space, you can just take the block right on the paper. But as soon as you go over, if you go over that with water, it just kind of disappears. The white block will sometimes come back, but not as much. I just like the control I get with painting it on with a brush. Now, what I would do going through here, let's building texture. Your lights are actually fine. I would go with more of a purple in here. And then you've already got this greenish blue here, so that gives you your more teal. The contrast difference when you get just a hint of purple up against your blue greens, up against your your greenish blues, that is what gives you that shine when you're, whether it be a peacock, a hummingbird, a duck, that shimmery color transition is because you've got these purple blues right next to your green blues. And that would make a huge, huge difference here in getting that shimmery look. And then for the details, I would just start glazing, start working into these darks. I think your lights are light enough for the most part here. I would then, well, maybe. You could probably get a high, actually at this point I wouldn't mess with it. I would just start focusing on getting the darks darker. And when you go darker with the Inktense, if you want to do the pencils, you can do that to get your shapes in there, or you can paint it on with a brush, whichever you're more comfortable with. If you do the pencil at this stage, because you've already got the base blended out, I probably would not blend the pencil much, if any, with water, because it kind of wants to take over and it gets really dark and it can end up a little bit weird. I would probably take the pencil, sharpen it to a really fine point, and then sketch in some of these feathers with the darker ones. You've already got this nice base, so now let's finish it with that detail. So shading on the beak, and then detailing and shading, get the darks darker on the duck, like all of this. If you go darker here and darker in here, it's going to make your lights look that much lighter. That's why I don't think you really even need to worry about making your lights much lighter. Your white pencil, you can put a few highlights in here, see how that works for you. But if it starts to look muddy at all, then I would, and you still want highlights, I would highlight it with the white Inktense block, let it dry, and then do a glaze, again with the Inktense block, of the teal color or whatever color you want. Just thin that down. No water in that case, or I mean, lots of water. No white in that case, just the Inktense block, and go over the, lightly go over the white, let it dry and see how that looks for you. It's a little bit of a pain because you don't know what that white, as soon as it gets wet, it's translucent. Even once it's dry and it's opaque again, you go over it with water, instantly disappears. And then when it dries, it's back. So it certainly makes a bit of a challenge there. But no, you did a great job. Yeah, that's basically it. Get those darks darker and make his eye a bit bigger. And his nose. He wants to see and smell us because we use Scentsy. Okay. Next. I'm not even pulling up the tank. I'm being lazy now because I want to go through these quicker so I can get to everybody because I am way behind. We have, I believe, a lemur here. You and where did it go? So this is from Lisa Clark, who said, "Hi Lisa, great name by the way. Fairly new to painting and drawing, but I'm enjoying your helpful tips and being a Patreon member of yours. This lemur was a challenge with the fur, but overall I learned as I went. I'm okay with the fluffy fur towards the bottom right of the lemur, but the white fur above his eyes I'm not happy with. Help, I'm going for realism, and I think I fell short." And then the photographer is Susan Roguehair. She did get permission to use that. So, okay. Let's take a look. I didn't want you to share a window. What are you doing? So the main issue right now is everything is white. Your white is like, hi, I'm titanium white. Whereas we want to get more of the shadows. So let's see, like in here, look at the shadow. Look at the shadow here. We've got even the white in here is not actually white. You've got the start of the shadow, but the shadow here, actually this whole area continues. You've got the start there, so that's good. Even here, this is it is a straight triangle, but you've got it's a little bit too big here. The nose, I would probably pull that up a little bit and then pull this shadow in and pull some white hairs over here so that this stands out. It's there, and it would be easy to pull some white hair there. That's going to help this triangle to not look so kind of weird. Let's remove all those lines. But the shading you did, I like the texture you've got down here. You can still go darker under the face there, but that's going to be my main thing, is just your values. You've got a lot of that detail in there. Watch this. So here, look at how it kind of, it does move in rows, but it's going this way. Yours are all going up. And I know that seems, here they're changing direction a little bit. It's kind of more, it's dense, but it's still going a direction. So watch that. As I get into these guys, I do this in little circles. And now I'm over exaggerating this, but kind of modeled like that, little circles when it gets super short and super dense like that. Instead of trying to do an actual line. And actually that's pretty much how I would do most of that. But notice how here the fur goes in these rows, even though the rows are not as defined as certain other types of fur, they're still there. So I would watch for that, and watch for, like, here, see how he's almost got this cap where it's a little bit lighter, and you've got the hint of that started. I would just over exaggerate that a little bit more. And then of course these shadows will make a huge difference. You start getting these shadows in here. Look at how much shading is in the whole area there. That is a lot of shading that would make a huge difference on getting the depth there. You have done a wonderful job. I mean, you are off to a great start. It's just not quite finished yet. So again, this is a big one. Get those highlights there, because look what a difference. Actually, let's layer. If we can just get a few little guys in here. This brush is terrible. Actually, I can fix that by not making it as obvious. The hint of that, look at what a difference that makes right there on that triangle not being so obvious. We've got a lot of shading, and that's really what this comes down to for the most part of a lot of this, is just getting some of these shadows built up. I don't have the right brush to do this because, well, here, just do another layer. Layer, new, layer. But we start building these shadows in here so it's a little bit less, let that fade in. So that triangle isn't so, hi, I'm a triangle. And then you've got just a lot of detail in here. The shading. This would be a lot darker. And just start pulling, keep working on what you already have. I would say maybe you're halfway done. That's going to make, just keep on going. I mean, I can sit here and work for hours to finish this, but get those shadows. You've got them started, so now finish it. Get in here. We've got all of these, I mean, look at how dark that area really needs to be. Start building that in, and you're going to get that more three-dimensional look. Your matte, I noticed that your signature, I know this is not what you asked about, but make sure you sign your name after you know where the matte is going to go, so you're sure that the signature doesn't get cut off by your matte. So just a little tip there. But no, you're off to a good start. The other thing here, the eyes. This is going to make a huge difference. Your eyes need a lot more highlighting on the bottom and a little bit more shadow on the top. And this is going to give you that more realistic. Same thing, we're gonna shadow a little bit up here, but get that dimension in there will really help. So we have, oh wow, thank you so much. Fly Me to the Moon said thank you, just thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I can't say it loud because I don't want the boys to hear. I'm surprised no one's standing there waiting for me. Thank you so much for the super chat. The fish get a snack for that. I'll feed them at the end. But yeah, I think that would help you a lot. It's just the shading. Nothing's wrong, nothing's bad. You're just not finished. And that's such a common thing. We have a tendency to call our work finished when we're like a quarter of the way through. Nothing is bad at all on this, like not even at all. You're just not done. Keep working on it. One of the things that made such a big difference, I'll close this out while I pull up the next and tell the story, but one of the things that made such a big difference for me, I was doing pet portraits. But I was doing mainly like just the headshot, and it was a loose sketch. I'd spend like 45 minutes, charge $50. Like I wasn't charging much for them. They weren't worth much because I wasn't doing that much work on them. But I would not do a ton. Oops, don't erase that. I wouldn't do a ton of time on it, but I kept looking at other artists' work and being jealous, not jealous, but more like I want my work to look like that. So I sat down and I really spent a lot of time thinking about, okay, what are they doing different than me? And the thing I came up with, they're spending a lot more time than I am. They're working slow. They're taking more time. So I decided, okay, if I've been spending an hour, 45 minutes, an hour on a piece, what happens if I spend 8 hours? So I made myself sit there and work for 8 hours. Holy crap, night and day difference. You would never guess it was the same artist. It went from pencil sketch to black and white photo. I mean, it was, and I obviously in that case, I did not develop new skills. I spent more time. That was the only difference because it was from one piece to the next. Didn't even look like it was the same artist. And it was just about spending more time. Okay. Next we have, download these. Whoops. Let me get these over here. Okay, we have from Lavinia. Here's a pastel portrait of my cat, Stormy Weather. I used pen pastels for the background and soft and drawing pastels as well as pastel pencils for the top layers. I used an electronic eraser for lifting. It's 18 by 24, so that's a good size. I used the grid method on the picture. You could see so I'd get the proportion on paper. By the way, I used regular drawing paper and not pastel paper. Oh, that's going to make your life more challenging. Oops, I forgot to mention I wanted to get her fur darker in the shadowed areas, but I just couldn't seem to achieve that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, how accurate is the reference photo? Because this isn't even the same cat. Like well, you actually did a decent job on the drawing, but color-wise, not the same cat. So this really, my tip is the same as the last one. Spend more time. You've got the skill. I see what you're seeing. Oh, kind of. The ear is missing parts. This actually like would come out that way more, but you're not finishing it. You're rushing through this and you are at, this is about, honestly, when I said I was spending about 45 minutes, no, they were graphite, so that goes faster, but it's about what I'm seeing on yours, quality-wise. And all I needed to do to make my work look way more realistic was slow the heck down. Stop trying to rush through it. Stop trying to get projects done. And YouTube is wonderful for artists, but it also created an illusion that artwork can be done in a night that really is going to take a lot, like weeks. So because of the nature of time lapse, slow down. You've got drawing skills. I can see what you're looking at here, but we need to start getting these shadows in here. I mean, a lot of shadows, and obviously color is completely off. So if this is your cat and it's actually a gray cat, I can see where you would make that change if the photo was on the orangey side. But was it on the, I mean, I like the photo. If it's that orangey brown color, I would have gone more with that than with the grays. But what you want to watch, so you got the main drawing of the cat. That's fairly accurate, mostly. A lot of this will just get easier the more you paint and draw. So, I mean, you are fairly accurate. But what you're missing are the clumps and clusters of fur. This is what I want you to start focusing more on. So look at how we've got these clumps. I don't care if they're exact. I do care that they're close. You've also got to watch when you get into these tabby cats, like the tabby print, that is a bit like you're going to have to put a little bit more work into that. You got to take your time. It's kind of like a brindle dog. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. Take your time on that. Where is my mouse? Here we go. Look at here. We've got stripes. We've got stripes. We've got stripes. Stripes. You've got the start of a lot of this. It's just not finished. You've got the start of this section. I can see that. It's a little rushed, but I can see what you're looking at. this is, okay, you've got this to where it looks like the outside of the ear because of the way it's shaded. This is actually part of the inside of the ear. Here's the outside of the ear. This starts coming in. Your hair would be coming that away. Now, part of that comes down to understanding anatomy. I have drawn so many cats. I know where those ears should be, and that is going to get easier with time. So sometimes you look at a photo and you'll miss look at it. I mean, that would be deformed if that was the outside of his ear. So that does get easier the more you paint, the more you draw. But you've got good drawing skills. And I'm not kidding. When I talk about that this is about the skill level, that when I was doing the pet portraits, that's about the skill level I was doing. And it's just $50, whatever. I was doing it in graphite. 8 hours. If you're putting, let's say right now you put 3 hours into this. I want you to bump that to 12 hours. You are going to see you've got the skill. The skill is there. I can see it. You're just not applying it because you're rushing through this so much faster. If you're currently spending 12 hours, I want you to put 24 hours. At least double the amount of time you're putting into it, but I would even go more than that. Okay, she is gray. So take your time, slow down. You've got, I have no doubt that you have the skill. You're just going through it so quickly. But look at the clumps that I'm showing over here. These are what we want to create. What you're doing is this loose, sloppy, bam, done. Spend more time. You are going to be so impressed with yourself. And even if you're like, oh, that doesn't sound like fun, I don't want to put that much time into it, you'll feel so proud of yourself that it'll be worth every friggin' extra minute that you put into it. You will be so glad that you took the time. Now, I know, and because you use the grid method, you took a lot of time on drawing. When you're freehanding it, you're using the grid method, holy crap, that takes forever. So, I mean, I would say trace, because you're not, I find students learn faster from tracing than from grid method. Learn faster to freehand. That's just been my experience. Everyone's brain works a little bit differently, so it may be different for you. Work whichever way you enjoy. But I would like to see you spending more time on getting the accurate details, because if I were to draw this and get it accurate, I'm probably going to spend 2 hours perfecting every aspect of just the line drawing. Or I can trace it, have it look exactly the same, spend, 10 minutes tracing it, getting that all perfect, and now I can spend those extra 2 hours could go towards the detail work. So if it's a time issue for you, speed that along. When you trace things, it does improve your freehanding. You still need to practice your freehanding. It's not, one or the other, but you will start, because it forces you to see things accurately, which means when you go back and freehand, you already are noticing, you've trained your brain to see what's there. And I find that it's much more effective than the grid method. But again, whichever method you enjoy, it doesn't really matter, as long as the end result is what I care about. But if it's an issue of you're looking at that going, but I don't want to spend twice as long or 4 times as long, I would say at least 4 times as long. I don't want to spend that much longer. Then shorten the drawing time, and you can put that towards the part that's going to make it look that much more realistic. So, because if you I say freehand, but you use the grid method there, you are going to be great with when you start spending more time. Okay. Next. So here's the reference photo. Here is the horse. Oh, that's beautiful. And that dang glare. Oh my gosh, the flash, the lighting, the glare just makes it so hard to photograph our artwork. So this is from, so we'll make some adjustments there. Where is my mouse? Come over here. This is from Angela. She said, I love the horse, but would like tips on how to improve my charcoal skills. White charcoal on Canson MeTense paper. I was having trouble with the texture. I double checked my line art, but he still looks crooked to me. Yeah, that happens. This might be a better picture. Whatever the better picture did not come in. So first off, we always have, this is skewed. We can tell from where the tape is. It's not, unless your tape is just super lopsided. But yeah, part of this, you don't have the shadows needed. Let's go ahead and edit and curves, just so it's a little bit more to what it probably looks like. I recommend when you're using charcoal, also use black charcoal. You don't need to be limited to just white charcoal when you're using white charcoal. Throw in the black and it makes it easier to pull your shadows up. Because yeah, you can use your eraser to pull your shadows up, but Generals are my favorite charcoal pencils. Generals has many, B and 2B and 4B. I don't know. They've got, no, what are theirs ranked? I don't know. They've got different darknesses. Use that because I would pull these shadows in. The horse has shadows. It looks like tree, like the light was coming through trees on his body. I understand why you didn't put that there, but I would still put shadows a little bit more than what you've got. Yeah, I see what you mean by the line. It just happens sometimes when we trace things. It doesn't always end up like, and this is one of the reasons. So I've had a lot of people asking me, and I'm going to start providing line art for you guys for the tutorials. However, I would rather you trace the photograph because let's say I give you a line art. Every time you trace it, it's a little less accurate. So you trace it, then you use transfer paper. It's now 2 times slightly less accurate. Now, if I trace a tracing, so you trace it, so now we're 2 times less accurate. Now you transfer it. Now we're 3 times less accurate. You're always getting less and less accurate to that photo every time you trace it because you're never going to be on there exact. So it's, yeah, that's just a side rant about line drawings. It is sometimes going to come out a little bit weird. And it may simply be that your shadows are, what is going on? It feels like that needs to be in more. This area needs to be closer together. Those are too far apart. So this shadow probably needed to come in. Actually, let's do this. Let's do you. I think one of the things, well, one, it needs to obviously be a lot darker. Or I mean, yeah, a lot darker because that photo. But part of it, our shadow is just not in enough. We have a lot of darker, whoops, wrong way. A lot of dark in here that is just missing. The dark, we've got a shadow that you're again missing. The shadows missing will make a huge difference on the overall balance. So it's going to make it harder for you to judge what's going on here. I'm doing a crappy, like super sped up. I would take a lot more time to perfect all of this just to show you kind of what I'm looking at. We've got a definite highlight here. Oops, that is, oh, I'm working right on the thing. That's why. I'll have to open a second one. Hold on. But you've got, like, you're missing some, I don't think that it's so much that it's drawn wrong. I think you're missing so many shadows that it appears that it's drawn wrong. It's the illusion of it. And really just taking more time. But because you've already got the white in there, even when you're erasing, it's giving you a weird smudge. You're not going to get that paper black to get the black charcoal. Make your life easier and your artwork look better. Solved. But like, I mean, around this eye, we've got so many shadows that we need to get in there. And again, I'm rushing like crazy through this, but it gives you kind of an idea. Through this whole area, we've got shadows. That is way too dark. But when you start getting all of these in here, it's going to completely change the shape of things. Like his eye here, it comes out. The neck connects to the eye there. I mean, it's just little things. And if you start getting your shadows where they go, your line drawing isn't the problem. So even though I was saying, yeah, that does get off sometimes, in this case, you just don't have enough shadows anywhere. I mean, all over the place. We would pull in more around the forehead. So he's looking so flat that's creating that illusion. I mean, this whole side here, if we look at this, look at how dark this whole, whoops, that is not the color I wanted. This whole section, how dark that is. Yours is completely missing. Let me pull the original back over. Let's see if I can. There we go. Whoops, what did I do? There we go. But if we look at yours, those shadows just aren't there. We've got so many more. And when you start getting those in, that's what's going to change the shape of the face. So I don't think it's an issue of your line drawing getting more and more off every time you drew it. I think you're pretty close. I think it's that you don't have your shadows. black charcoal pencil and go to town with that. Okay. Beautiful. That's such a perfect piece for charcoal too. I'd like to see you. You can keep, I don't even think you need to start over. I think you just need to get the black pencil and get to go right over where you are now. Let's see. Next. Ooh, I'm cutting it close. We're going to go a little bit late tonight because I've got a few more and I want to get to everybody's who submitted by 8 tonight. If you have since submitted, it's not getting done in time. Why, ad block? Why are you doing that to me? Why did you do that? I don't know why you did that. So this one I can't do, Audrey, because neither of your photos, wait, did it? Oh, I can. Okay, it came through. I thought, wow, okay. So Audrey's is so good. I thought she sent me 2 reference photos. Wow. That is, wow. On the thumbnail, it looked like a reference photo to me. Like her, and that, when it's little like that, because I can't really see the detail. I'm just seeing the contrast looking real, the values and the lighting look so good. When that looks real like that, you know your values were just spot on. Like, good freaking job on those values. Oh my gosh. I love the shading in those cactus. Like the shading, the lighting, the colors you chose, like in a thumbnail, when it was little, it looked, I mean, now that it's blown up, I can clearly see it's a painting. But when it was little, it looked so realistic that I was like, oh, you forgot to send me the actual artwork. You just sent me 2 reference photos. That right there, your values, spot on. Good job. Wow. Okay, so we're starting off with wow. So let us, Audrey said, would love to hear your advice on how I can improve on this. The colors seem off to me, not enough depth, background sand, etc. Photo references were from reference photos on Facebook. Roadrunner was from Sue Ganway. Okay, I don't know what meat. That looks like acrylics. It's either acrylics or oils, I would guess. I think. Okay. I don't really have much to see. Here's the thing. You're talking about wanting, I get it. You want more depth in the sand. You have more reference photos of that. If that's what you're trying to do. This to me does feel stylized. Realistic, but also stylized realism in the way that it's painted. You have the hint of grass. You have the hint of where the sand would be, and it works. You've got beautiful depth, the way you've got the blue in the background, the mountains. I don't have a lot. The only thing, the line here is a little bit harsh. You could probably soften that out and start having, oops, you could probably start having this line fade a little bit more into blues as it works its way back, and that's going to give you a bit more depth. But I wouldn't do a whole lot there. I really like this piece. I know you said it feels like the sand doesn't have a lot of depth. It looks like it's supposed to be grassy. Without a photo, I can't tell for sure what you're going to do. If you want more sand, you're going to I'm really tired. You're just going to take more time and get that level of detail in there. The Roadrunner is adorable. I don't know what size this is. Come on. Why are you? Oh, because this turned off. You either died or you went to sleep. Either way. This is way enlarged, so that is not really what it looks like. You could soften some of the brush strokes on the Roadrunner so it's not so, but it has that stylized feel that works well with everything else. The shading you did on your rocks, all that looks very realistic. You probably do a little bit more shading under the wing, on the belly here, under that wing, to get some more depth there. A little bit more white around the eye. You've got a lot of blue there, which is fine. That's being nitpicky. That's unimportant. I would get more white in here just so that the face portion is separate a little bit more from the body. Right now on yours, the area around the face, this area and this area, it's all kind of the same. So I would probably pull more whites in around the face. But as far as you said, wanting the colors don't seem off to me. I actually do like the colors, minus in this background. If you had just softened, let's try it. I don't know, maybe it's a terrible idea. Let's see, layer, because, you know, I'm gonna make this go really long. File, layer. What if we just take that bluish color, and just kind of tone these down back here, so we can still see it. It's just gonna fade that out as we move forward. And obviously I'm being really messy with it, but that is going to give a bit more depth. So that is certainly one thing that you can do. But colors wise, I actually really like it. You could go, if you really like the contrast, you could go a little bit darker with like a violet-y color. You can pull some more darks in here. I don't have a reference photo for this, but you could probably pull a little bit more darks in this area. But I would go with a dark magenta violet type tone. But that would certainly give you a little bit more depth. You could probably pull that same violet in here just to pull in other areas, because if you're going to introduce a new color, I would introduce that in other areas than just one. Yeah, those are pretty much my only tips. I love this. The blue that you've got here on this rock, I would like to see a little bit more of that on some of the shadows in here, maybe a little bit of blue in the shadows on the whatever that is back there. I want to call it a yucca, but I don't think that's what it is. I don't know. Maybe a little bit more, because it is odd that you only have the blue in the one spot. And I think that that blue shading is beautiful on the rock. So pulling a little bit of that into the other ones. Not a lot. Doesn't need to be as much, but a little bit more would be great. Oh, it's a 20 by 24 oils. Okay. Oh, just glazing. Your job is easy. This is such easy fix. Oils are like such an easy medium to fix stuff on. But by toning some of this down, and that's big, that's a good size. So yeah, I would say maybe a little bit of deeper, like a dark magenta tone in those flowers, a little bit more shading in this thing I'm calling a yucca that isn't a yucca, and pull a little bit more, because it's a little bit weird that right in this area you have blue here and nowhere else. There, now we can see it. I would pull a little bit more in a few other areas. Not crazy. I would not make it like that much blue, because it's fine that that has a little bit more, but I would, you know, balance that out a little. Beautiful, beautiful work. Yeah, no, this is gorgeous. Okay. And who is next? We have... I think Wade's bored. I heard a squeaky toy out there. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. You know, I'm taking a quick break and feeding the fish, because they have not eaten in hours now, and I did not feed them that much right before I went. So, you know, quick little time out here. Let's give these guys a snack, because you're definitely hungry. And then we'll get back to the critique. Plus, I kind of need to stand up, so it works out well for everyone. There you go. Okay. Next, we have, this is from Cheryl. She said, "Hi Lisa, I've learned so much from you. Yay. This is my first pet portrait. I did it for a niece for a wedding gift. I did this in acrylics and was aiming for a realism. I appreciate any tips you have to improve. Thank you for your time." Okay, so Cheryl, that is really having a lot of reflection there, which makes everything difficult. Let's pull this down. There we go. Oh, beautiful work. My first thing, did you paint that, or is that just photoshopped in where it says Kira? I personally do not like pet portraits where people write the name on it. I mean, I know some owners request it. I typically tell them no. One of the things, I know this isn't what you're asking about, one of the things that I do if somebody does request the dog's name be written on something is get a frame and put a nameplate on it, like a gold nameplate. It looks so much classier. So that is, I don't know if that's written on there or if that was photoshopped in. I can't tell. If it's painted on, you did a great job with your penmanship. So this is cool. This is really pretty. I don't have a lot of tips. The ear, I would go, if you look at your reference photo, look at how you've got a lighter area and a darker area, and then the darker area again. That's kind of these 3 sections. Watch that. You've got the start of it. I would do that a little bit more. Watch the inside of ears. It seems not important. It really makes a difference. Like, put a little bit more work on the inside of ears, but that is really good. Here, this is a little bit too straight. I would get some little hairs in there. Break that up. So I would do a couple things here. Let's actually do another layer. This is beautiful work, by the way. So as a standalone, I know it's already been done and I'm sure the person has it, so it's not like you're going to go back and change this. But if I were to do this again, these are changes I would make. New, my eyes are really tired. Edit, layer, pay attention, new, layer. Okay, so I would first, that one. I would darken this more, and I would keep the back of that head, just let it all be in shadow. You don't need, I mean, the reference photo's in shadow, and I think that looks beautiful. I would do that in the artwork too. I would soften, right now, the black that you did around the edge is so dark. Soften that. Either don't include it at all, or if you do include it, soften that up. Look at the difference already. Just a little over that. So it's a softer transition, and it looks like you've used the airbrush, which makes things way easier because you can softly go through that. I like having that highlight in the center here, but let's darken some of that so that it's not so, it's such a ring around the edge. So this gives us more of like just that softer look. And then the other thing I would go through, if you look at the face, I like that you didn't go as dark as what the reference photo had on the shadows for the side of the face there, but I still think that you could go darker than what you've got. So, you know, pull a little bit, maybe not that much. Let's lighten that a lot, not that lot. I would pull some more, and I would get some blues or purples in this. Right now I'm just using black. Let's actually, maybe not that much. I'm going to use the purple just because that's what you used in the background, so that's the color I'm going to use for those shadows. But get some of those shadows in there. This can go over the tans. Purples always look good over tans and oranges anyway, so that is my go-to shadow color. And especially since that's the color you use, looks like a deep violet or something similar. So to see if we just keep pulling some of those shadows to find that a little bit more, we can get a little bit more depth in there. So those would be my changes, just a little bit more shading, a little bit more. I would definitely go more pinky purple in here too, since that's, you know, you've got that purple line, so that's the color I would use for these shadows. Great work. Now, one thing here, watch that you don't overdo the shadows or the harshness of the fur here on the neck. So this area here. That area, that is a really thick thing. There we go, that area. That fur, it looks almost like it's wet a little bit too much because they're too defined. Let either go smaller or let them blend in. What am I doing? So where I normally say do, get your higher contrast with the shadows, a little bit too much starts to, it starts to look almost like wet fur, which is not what we want here. To make that look softer, we're going to go down, and actually that would still be some of his tan color in a lot of this. It's not straight white there anyway, but see how we can soften that? Don't feel like you need to make every bit as harsh as what that was. You have a few deep areas, and we can see that in the reference photo. We've got a few of these deep areas in here, like these lines. We want to get those, but don't feel like you have to create every single bit of that in there because it ends up being a little bit too harsh. So just by softening some of that out, we get a softer feel. Okay, so next, oops, where's my mouse? There it is. Okay, couple more. And by a couple, I mean more than two. I like that reference photo. First thing on this one, that head is way too small for that size of paper. So there's tip one. I like the style you did, that looser, kind of little bit of color shading and then the detail over. That's really cool. Okay, so, this is from Christy, who said, I wanted to start by saying thank you for taking the time to even look at this, whether you choose to critique it or not. I work in watercolor and archival ink. I definitely struggle with values, both in painting and drawing. I have a bad habit of working too close to the piece. Everything looks great up close, and then I step back and I can't see any of the details. Easy. Take a step back more often. Like, paint for, if this is a known problem for you, paint for 10 minutes and then walk across the room and look at it at a distance. Constantly get in the habit of doing that. That's going to really help. Force yourself to do that. Let's see. I'm always afraid of taking the darks too far. I struggle with that when painting this piece. I had your voice in my head saying, make sure the darks are dark enough. I did post on another forum for the first time ever and got a lot of great feedback that pushed me to go farther with the values. Outside the values, I struggled with the whiskers. They are white, but it wasn't feasible to do that in watercolor with a white background. I'm working on a new piece with a cheetah and I'm running up against the whisker issue again. I thought if I gave the new piece a dark background, I could leave negative space for the whiskers, but that was an epic fail. Yeah, that usually doesn't work out well. Masking fluid is not my friend. None of us. It's none of our friends. How would you handle whiskers when they are going across both white area? If they're going across white, I'm going to pull darker areas in. So like you did here, you use the black, that's probably what I would do. Or like a blue, or it needs to, if you use blue, it would need to be whatever color you used in your background. So like you've got this kind of purpley color on the shadows. That is what I would go with the whiskers, but a lighter version of that, so you only get the hint of it. So working watercolor, you're going to water it down more, obviously. And just a few of those would be black in addition to that. But white's not really going to be white anyway. So having this purpley, like really watered down thin purple that you're drawing on, that would honestly be fine. Yeah, your values, you need to go darker for sure. That is, I mean, that's, you already knew that was going to be what I would say. You're very yellow orange, which if you're going for more stylized, that's fine. If you're going for more realism, we need to get some more of that grayish, kind of muted up a little bit. Pulling a little bit of violet in there, in with the oranges and yellows, is going to make a big difference. Pulling, you've got this grayish blue color pulling in. You've got like that purpley blue, whatever color you used on the chin, the chin area. If you pull some of that into the oranges, that's going to muddy it up in a way that will be more realistic. I know watercolor, we're like, oh, we don't want muddy. Yeah, you kind of need it right now. We want to muddy that up so it's not so orange, if that makes sense. Stylized, it's fine, but otherwise, yeah, we want to do that. The highlights in the eyes, that go with a light blue versus white. I think right now you're trying to keep too much white. There's almost no white on this guy. So yeah, values are going to be the thing. You get your darks darker, your lights and a few areas more defined. And I think for a quick sketchbook sketch, beautiful. This is really cool. But if you're trying to do something that is more realistic, you're moving more towards more realism. If you spent, like, this is, again, going similar to the amount of work I was doing on pet portraits initially. If I spent 45 minutes on it, 8 hours made a difference. So depending on how long, and you may be looking at this going, I spent 5 hours on that, whatever it is. I work fast. That doesn't, it's how fast you work is no indication of how skilled you are. So just because an artist works fast does not mean they're good. I just work as fast as I talk. That's just how my brain works. So I just don't want any of you guys feeling like I need to work faster to be better. That's not an indication of like how good your work is going to look. But whatever you spent on this, I want you to spend like 4 times longer. Like you're a quarter of the way through. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's not finished. And that's really it on there. But the whiskers are easy. I don't do masking fluid to leave it out. I tried that with colored pencil. I tried all kinds of stuff with colored pencil with that. With colored pencil, I use touch-up texture titanium white mixture. With watercolor, I know watercolor artists don't love the white, but what is it? PH Doc Martens, something too many words, bleed proof white. Amazing. So if you did a dark background and I want white highlights on there, that is my go-to. Yeah, you're not getting the translucency of watercolor, so you're violating the rules of watercolor. What? I don't care. It looks good. So that is the product that I use with watercolor to get my brighter whites if I've got a darker background. But in this case, I wouldn't go with so much black as what you did for the whiskers here. I would go with more of that. You've got this kind of like, it's almost like an indigo purpley gray. I don't know, maybe that's just what it looks like on this monitor, but that's what I would go with, a really light version like that, really thin down with water for those whiskers, and just paint it on with a script liner. I like the look though, where the color's kind of bleeding out around the face. I think that looks really cool. I don't like floating heads. We already covered that. I would continue the body if you're going for more realism, or get the hint of body. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of floating heads other than for practice. For practice, it's perfect. Nothing wrong with that. Like I said, if this is a sketchbook, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. If you're going more for realism, these are the things I would change. No more floating head. Start continuing on the rest of the body. Get those whiskers so they're not all black. Go lighter. Get your darks a bit darker, your lights a bit lighter. And right now, all of your spots you've put in with black, but none of them are dark enough. They also are all flat black. You should have blue highlights on there. If you look at the reference photo, look at, oh, did Nick send me something? Oh, I don't know. I missed that. I just now saw it. Sorry, Nick. Nope, we already did that. I don't need that anymore. Close you down. Today would be better than later. Okay. What I'm looking for is my little color box. Oh, I still have, I don't need you. Okay. If we look at these highlights here on the black, it won't look that much. But look at how it's like this purpley blue gray versus just, you know, your darker colors. You've got a lot of variation when you get into those spots. You don't want them just all straight flat black. If you're doing a cartoon, you're doing stylized, you're doing a sketchbook, no problem. You get into realism and none of those are going to be flat black. And if you watch any of my tutorials, so I know this is watercolor, but watch any of my tutorials where I'm doing any of the bigger cats where they've got stripes or spots, watch how it'll fade from the black and then blue for highlights on some of the spots. And then it'll get magenta right before it hits the tan color. The tans are oranges. So it's never, ever flat black. That's going to be more stylized, not realistic. In realism, they're so black, like reflect so many things pick up in there. So that would be another thing. So darks need to be darker. Lights a little, some of the lights around the face could be lighter, but mainly it's that the darks need to be darker there. And then just slow down, slow way down. That's really cool though. Okay, next we have what is really large, so I can't see what it is yet. And okay, we have a squirrel. And I'm going to go really fast because I'm trying to do everybody's tonight, and I think I have 2 more after this. Let's see. This is Kendra. Most of you know me as Dane Mum ×2. One of these days I'll get around to painting my girls. Today, however, I have this curious little squirrel that looks like a whole lot like one of my neighborhood squirrels that I'm using all of my fur babies. This was done on Bristol Vellum 8x10. Oh, I freaking hate Bristol Vellum. It is too smooth. With every make of colored pencils you can think of, I'm pretty happy with the finished picture, but unfortunately the paper got scratched during creation because it's Bristol Vellum, and did I mention I hate Bristol Vellum? I tried to fill in the blemish with OMS and layering more pencils, but I can still see it because it's Bristol Vellum. Sometimes you can use that to your advantage. Most of the time it's a pain in the butt. If you zoom in, it goes from bottom right. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Hand and shoulder squirrel. Do you have any suggestions to repair this? Yes, don't use Bristol Vellum in the future. Oh, yeah. What happens, Bristol Vellum is too smooth, so it's a pain because you can't get your darks dark enough. Yeah, it is there. It got an indent, and so you're not able to get your pencils in there. You can try to really, really sharpen them and try to get them into that, burnish over it. You can give that a try. OMS to an extent can help sink it in some, but Bristol Vellum, that's one of the things with it that you can use as an advantage. Like you can score whiskers And then when you shade over it, the whiskers stay light because your pencil doesn't get into those nooks and crannies. But that's just a thing with, I see the scratch. If you guys don't see it, it goes right there. So it's noticeable. The average person is not going to notice it. You can burnish over it and that might hide it. But yeah, that's just, Bristol vellum is a pain in the butt for so many reasons. The other thing about Bristol vellum, it is extremely smooth, so it's very hard to get your darks dark enough. Everything for me always feels a bit muted. Yeah, I'm just not a fan. Like, and even here, like on this guy, and I know this isn't what you specifically asked about, but like your darks, all of the darks in here, all of that, so much darker. And getting those values in there is going to be a lot easier on paper that has a little bit more tooth. Hot press watercolor paper is going to be my favorite, personally, or sanded paper, depending on which method you want to go with. But on this guy, I would say, yeah, get your darks way, way darker. It's going to make them stand out more. It's going to be more striking. Get those burgundies, a lot, like a put mortem's a great one. I'm probably not saying it right, I know. Your deeper violets, like dark burgundies and such, mixed in with those oranges, those rich colors. Get the darks on the trees. Like, I would like to see way more contrast here. Right now, this is all mid-range and lights. I want to see all the darks. The darks just aren't there. The problem is, it's Bristol vellum. You can get it darker for sure, but it just, that paper is so smooth, it doesn't take a lot. And so I would try some other papers in the future. Can you fix that scratch? Burnishing those areas, you might be able to jam the color in there enough where you're basically creating scratches around it. And so the pencil's like, you flatten the tooth out there, the pencil will reach it now. But yeah, it's going to be noticeable. If you hadn't pointed it out to me, I probably wouldn't have really noticed it. So it's not the end of the world. You notice it. I notice it because you pointed it out to me. But yeah, that's one of the joys of Bristol vellum. I'm not a fan if you can't tell. But you did a really good job on him. He needs his darks. He just is missing all his shadows. Pull some bluey, purple grays like around the face. Get some other colors in there too. Yeah, shadows. He needs darks. The branches, everything is good. You've got all the hard work done. The drawing is done. He just doesn't have any darks in yet. So this is always the fun stage for me, where you get to make everything darker and everything just starts going like, wow, this looks so much better. So yeah, go darker. I mean, even watch. Adjustments, curves. Watch what'll happen. Even if I just do this. Bam, darker. Suddenly, what a, like, there. What a difference in just going darker. And he has so much more depth if you just get those darks darker. Again, Bristol vellum, it's going to be a challenge, but you know, that's my advice. Really cute little guy though. Good job. Okay, next. 2 left. Ooh, I like this. You know, like pretty much everybody's, but oh wow. Save image. And there we go. So artwork, reference photo. Oh, that's gorgeous. Okay, what do we have to say here? This is from Nancy, who said, "Hi Lisa, I struggled with creating depth, contrast, and fading the fading bottom greenery was also new to dewdrops." Oh, I think you did a wonderful job on those. Oh yeah, your dewdrops, perfect. No problems there. So you are good. Fading the greenery. So one of the things that's happening is the green is very, almost like a Kelly green. It's like, hi, green, I'm green, like pure green. Tone it down by adding red. Or in your case, you've got whatever red you use in your pink, mix that in with your greens, and that's going to tone that way down and help give you more of that natural tone. You've even got some of the yellows in here on yours. You've got some of those yellows. So even, oops, what am I doing? There we go. These yellows you've got in there, you can pull some of those yellows and mix it in with the greens and the reds. Like here, we've got this kind of more of an avocado army green. You can just tone that down by pulling the reds and the yellows into that. but I think that's part of why those are standing out so much, is that they're really green. But then again, on the flip side, you've also got that really green up in this area. So it works. It doesn't, like, I don't look at that and go, I really wish that wasn't so green. It looks fine to me. But looking at the reference photo, I see what you're looking at, where they're toned down. You can certainly get more shading on the leaves. If it weren't for just, you know, if you're okay with the brighter green, that's fine. Just get more shading in here. You can pull more shadows under a lot of this. So you just get the hint, you're just glazing black over it. So super fast, super easy. And then darker areas. So your darker darks are, I would just take whatever color you've got for your dark. So like, yeah, let's go with this. And then darken it up. So yeah, I can start, actually, let's just make that easier on myself. You can pull your darks a lot darker, and that almost always, oh, I don't know on that. I kind of like where it's at. I would have to mess with Photoshop to make it better, because this is oversaturating it, and I don't like that. This is one of the cases where I don't like the oversaturating that's done with the curve, so that would not be my go-to solution there. So I would say just getting some of whatever your darker color is, and you can darken those up just a bit more. Petal by petal, not all of them, I'm just using one color, but it gives you an idea of, you know, just a darker version of what you already have. Now, when you're dealing with the pinks, you may think, well, I've got a pink color, so red and white, just add black, right? You add black, that white is in there, you just made gray. Now, if it's a grayish tone you want, that's fine, but that's probably not what you're looking for. So if you're gonna be glazing some of these darker tones, I would use like whatever red color you used in purples, and maybe a little black there. But if there's white involved, don't throw the black in unless you want a grayish tone, because that will gray up on you. If you want a grayish tone, that's fine, but it doesn't look like that's something that you would really want here. So yeah, those are my tips for you. Just glaze darker values of what you've already got. Just be careful not to add white, thinking I mixed pink by red and white, add white, you get it. Beautiful, beautiful work though. And it's just, yeah, make your darks darker, spend a bit more time. And that's, you're at a stage on that piece where I like that's the fun stage of, let's just spend more time perfecting what's already, the hard part's done. Now you're just glazing and fussing over values and back away and a few more brush strokes and back away. I don't know, that's just the fun part to me. Okay, next. I'm at the last one. Oh, wait, am I? Because wait, was it Hannah? Someone with an H was submitting, so I might have, hold on, I'm going to have to look that up, because I thought I got it. So maybe there's one more after this. I've got to make sure I've got the, ooh, wow. This is going to be a quick one. So yay for time, and wow, you guys are going to like this. Oh my God, the way you colored this, I love it. Okay, couple tips. Let's actually first read what you have to say. Hi Lisa, this is my first portrait. I thought black and white would be easier, but absolutely wasn't. I mixed the black using burnt umber and ultramarine blue and struggled going too blue, too cool, too brown, too warm. As you can see, I ended up with both. You know what? And that's what I loved about this. This was a happy accident, because I think this is better than black and white would have been. Beautiful. Do you think it works, or should I have done one or the other? I think if you wanted black and white, use black and white pencils. I think this is a pencil. Does it say what it is? This is from Sue. I don't think it looks like pencil. Is it pencil? I'm honestly not sure, because I might be seeing the grain of the canvas. Oh, I think I am seeing the grain of the canvas. I don't know what this is, but if I'm going to do black and white, I'm going to use black and white. You start mixing, this is the problem. Black and white needs to look right, needs to have no color saturation. So while people often talk about mix your own black and white with your burnt or your umbers and your ultramarine blue, sure. If you're working in something in color, that gives you more depth and whatever, but when you're working black and white, unless you mix a big freaking batch of that, you're going to run out, you're going to mix more, and it's never going to come out the same. So if you're working in black and white, titanium white, black, that is what you're going to use, whether it be pencil, whether it be paint. If you're working in black and white, use black and white. Don't try to mix your own unless you are willing to make a big, huge batch of it. And even when you make a big batch, when you mix your own black and you start adding white, it looks weird. It shifts in weird kind of, I wouldn't do it. Just use black and white paint if you want black and white. If you want black and white and colored pencil, use black and white colored pencils. Don't mess with the blues and the umbers. However, because you did this look so good, it's very artsy. And I know that was not your intent, but I absolutely love the screw up. Like, it's so much better because it didn't go as planned. I love when that happens. So I love that. Now, the one thing I want to talk about is the hair on babies. You've really got to watch. God, this is good. This is so good. You've got to watch two things. Well, watch the upper lip on there showing a little bit more than it does on the actual photo, but also watch the hairline in here, how definite that is. That really is going to fade out. That baby fuzz is just kind of translucent and it fades. Excuse me. If you go too defined on the hair, you start getting into balding old man versus baby hair. So go softer, soften that out a lot. Let it just kind of fade into the skin, be a soft transition. Don't try to get all of those little individual hairs, especially when it's that harsh as a lot of these lines are. I think your eyebrow, you're soft enough, you got away with that. That's another area I often see people go way too harsh on babies. But anywhere, well, some of your lines are a little bit too harsh towards the inside where it really is just a shadow. But the hair, that would be the only, like the main thing that stands out on me with this that I would adjust. And then maybe a little bit more shading on the side of the face and the neck as well. Maybe all of the shadows on the face, I would go a little bit darker. So it's not so bright. The more I'm looking at this, you've got a lot of shadows. You can go darker. So let's do this in pink. I just want to highlight and point out this whole area, this area, these areas, all that can go a lot, this area, all that can go a lot darker. But man, I love the look that you ended up with the blue and the black, heck, that could be Inktense. I honestly have no idea what medium this is, but very, very pretty. But yeah, pick one. Either do black and white, use black and white paint, or unless you're good with it being more stylized, like these unique colors. I like the unique colors personally. That's going to be personal preference. But if I wanted something to be actually black and white, then I'm going to use black and white paint. And that's one of the problems anyway. Fly Me to the Moon, why not continue? Because I only have one more left. Unless I want to accept more submissions. Let me know. I can do another one of these tomorrow. If there's enough of you guys that will submit for next week, we can do 2 weeks in a row. It's fine by me. But I do have one more, I think. Wait. Oh, no. There's another one that I missed completely. No, the photos didn't come in. Never mind. Oh, yeah, they did. Oh, no, we did get that one. Okay. It's like, man, did I miss? I did not. The only one that I'm missing, here's Hannah's. Okay. Let me do Hannah really quick, and that's everything. But if you guys want me to continue and do another one after this tomorrow, whoops, why did I do that? Stop it. Hannah, I want to get to tonight because I'm pretty sure Hannah just signed up for Patreon today so she could do this critique. So I want to make sure she gets in on this. So the last one. But if you guys let me know if you want me to do another critique next week, I am all for that. They're actually easier for me to plan because I don't have to do a lot. Okay, let's see. We have the last one for tonight. Let me get these in here. So there's the art. There's that. And let's see what Hannah has to say. Okay. Yep, she said, I signed up for your Patreon. I would like to submit if it's still possible. Yeah, I think she signed up today. Do we have any? Okay, here's our information. Okay, it's a feather study in pastels. What I struggled with most was the smaller feathers at the top of the piece, as well as the less defined chest feathers. Any advice or critique on how to improve would be greatly appreciated. Also, I struggled to get good photos of my work. I can't seem to get straight in focused angle. It tends to be off and the sides aren't straight when I go to crop it. It's hard as I have terrible lighting in my house and can only try to capture a photo while propping it in a window. Okay, you need a tripod. that'll solve your problem. Your tripod, you can fix it, because every time, I usually take my photos without a tripod and then I regret it. But that's the only way you're really going to make sure you get everything lined up and straight, so that when you hit the click button, you didn't just shift a little bit and screw it all up. So tripod is going to be your friend in this case. Okay, so let's take a look. The first thing that I'm seeing is the shape of the feather. No, some of them are good, but some of them are too, let's talk about the shape. See how they're a little bit, no, you're okay, really, until you get down here. The shape starts going kind of wonky, where it starts being a little bit too uniform. Whereas if we look at these actual feathers now, oh, hold on, this is cropped different though, so that's actually, I'm looking at an area, never mind that. I might take back everything I just said, because your crop is right about there. Okay. These are you've got too much white. First off, the amount of white that you're using in here, when you're working with red, I do not like white highlights, because now you have pink. Instead, try highlighting with oranges. So if you're working, what did you say you were working in? I think you said pastels. So peaches, something like an opaque peach, bright oranges, but not white. White ends up pink on top of red, and so that's never really going to look right. And even if you look at the reference photo, those chest feathers, when you get up in here, that is there's a lot of that orangey tone. So we've got a few things going on. The shadows down here are not dark enough. The highlights up here are not light enough, or orange enough, I should say. So I'd like to see more of that. I want to see the shadow. So you've got these shadows in here. I want to see those individual lines start pulling up in there more. You've got a few more, whether you're using, I'm using black right now, but you can use like a nightshade. Well, you're using pastel, so like a deep purple, something like that. But let's start a few of these. We need to get some shadows on, not all of them. And then this whole area down here, we want to get that a lot darker. When we get into a lot of these colors, let's do you. What are you doing? There we go. I am not using the right button. As we get into these colors, see this olive green color that we have in here? That is, well, it's olive green, versus here we've got more of a lime green on yours. So I would, if you want to go more natural with these guys, it's really going to be a little bit more toned down, a little bit more, so this is a green wing macaw, not a scarlet. A scarlet macaw is going to have more of the yellow. This is that, well, green. I think green wing, green, olivey green colors. So that was going to give you a more natural look. These feathers in here are more teal. So, you know, we're just talking about a shift in color is going to make a bit of a difference. But what were your actual? So those are just my first impressions of things I would change. But I want to see, what did you say now? I struggle the most with the smaller feathers at the top of the piece, as well as the less defined chest feathers. So I think one of the problems you're having is you're trying to define something that shouldn't be defined. You're forcing in highlights. There are not really a lot of highlights. It's really your darker. So like if I were doing this, I would take that darker red color, which is kind of an orangey, dark color there. I would take this color. I would fill everything in with that color first, and then I would come through. Well, actually, I would probably do it more slow, like one feather I would fill in. But then I would come through with my darker colors, the blacks, the dark purples, and get those shadows in there. Your brightest highlight, you're trying to put highlights that should have no highlights at all, and white that should not have any white involved in that. The only white in this piece, which you did beautifully well, is up in this area. That has some white highlights hitting, but that's it. This area, none of that. And that's going to be the case on anything red that you're doing. It's a really old lesson, but it's roses, red roses, and you can see that I'm highlighting using oranges and yellows, not, in coral colors, peaches, pinks, not white, because that turns to straight pink. If I don't want pink, I don't want, well, white on top of the red. So when I say pink, it's really more of a coral pink that I used, but that might help you. Watch that video. It's a really old one, so the quality is not going to be as good as what I currently do, but watch what I'm using for colors on that. And you can speed it up, just mute it and speed it up if you want to see a time-lapse version, just get an idea of the colors to get reds. It's going to give you a more natural feel. But the other thing is just slow down. So you put so much time into this. Let's say you were spending an hour on one feather. I want you to spend at least twice as long, 2 hours on one feather. Take your time and pay attention to all the little, well, this isn't the right thing, but all the little lines in here. These are tiny little breaks in the feathers. Pay attention. And you've got some of those, but what you're doing is the fast version where it's just quick lines. These are actual little V shapes. Like look at it's squiggly V, squiggly, small V, squiggly. Like pay attention to those. You've got some of them, but they're still, all of the lines are very like rushed, not as controlled as I would like you to be on that. Just the big tip there, which has pretty much been the tip for everyone tonight, slow down, almost everyone, slow down. Spend a little bit more time, pay more attention to the values. There's a lot of areas, like in this area, we want to pull a lot. I'm too dark here. This is not right. But I mean, that's actually really bad. Don't pull that much. We've got a lot of these shadows we need to start getting. So mute the colors. They're too bold, too bright. The yellow is. Go with more of like an avocado green if you're going for realistic. But we've got to pull a lot of these shadows, start getting these values in there. And I think the problem that you're having on the smaller chest feathers is you're trying to define something you shouldn't be able to see. Those feathers, you're just going to get the hint. I mean, look at the difference in value here. There's not a lot. Here's your brighter red in this area. Oops, this isn't what I meant to do. So like there's the chest brighter red, there's the shadow. Very subtle change there. And what you're doing is trying to have white up against reds and blacks. It's too much contrast. We want to get the hint of those feathers, sure, but they're softer. Don't feel like you need to overly define something that should not be overly defined. It's almost, it gets to the point on that area of the feathers that it's more like fur. It's just soft and like, I don't want to say one mass, but it's not, you're not seeing the individual feathers as well defined as you were up in this section. So, and again, oranges, we talked about that. I'd adjust the colors a bit, just because these ones, that teal-y color just looks better up against that scarlet red, the teals, and then the avocado green. Yeah, that's it. Work on slow down more, define all of this, like all of this, I would define those shadows even more. Keep that nice and crisp. Some of this out here, yeah, those get out of focus. But when you get into some of these, that is just this nice crisp shadow. And if you start putting that in, this is going to make such a difference. And now, not all of them should have this deep of a shadow, but some of them certainly should. Just take your time, and you're going to do the same thing over here. Instead of white highlights, you're going to be using something that's very subtly different from the others. Not a big difference. I mean, this whole area, you don't see a lot. There's a few, the hint of lines, but not all the lines. So hopefully that helped. I think this goes back to kind of what we were talking about in some of the earlier pieces is, oh, you also said this was a 9.5 by 12 on Clairefontaine pastel matte, pan pastels. Okay. So we got that. We're good. Okay. But this was something we talked about with a lot of them, with trying to add detail that doesn't exist and doesn't need to exist. When you start forcing detail that isn't in the photo, it's not in the photo for a reason. It looks realistic. That's why you chose the photo, how it was. So when you see something, don't feel like you need to add detail when it really should just be a soft transition. And that's what's going on those smaller feathers as you move down towards the belly of the bird. Okay. I think that's it. We got through all of them. Okay. You guys want another critique next week? Okay. Go ahead. For those of you who are watching, if you're on Patreon, submit the same exact way that, and you're not like out. You can still submit if you submitted tonight. If you had something else you wanted me to look at, you can still submit that. Go ahead. And again, those of you on Patreon, I'll leave the instructions up so you can still submit for next week's. And yeah, I'll go ahead. So I'm going to leave it for the $6 and over. Usually what I do for the Patreon critiques is open it to the top tiers. So they get, first dibs, and then I open it to the later ones. There's a possibility, because this is where I'm announcing it now, we've got a full week, that I'll get too much next week, and we'll have to spread those into the next 2 weeks, but which I'm all for. I like live streaming in the office. It gives me an excuse to use this camera. But yeah, I think we are... Oh, I'm so ready for bed. Thank you guys so much. I will talk. Thank you everyone for submitting too. You guys are wonderful and also brave. I could not do this without you, that's for sure. So anyway, thank you guys so much. I will see. Check out our moderators channels. The links are in the video description. We'll see you for next week's live stream. Again, patrons, you've got instructions over there on how to submit. And if you did submit tonight, you are still allowed to submit for next week too. I'm not going to limit that. So anyway, that is it. I am done. Where's my mouse? I lost my mouse again. I don't know. I don't know where all my buttons are. I lost OBS. There it is. I'm done. I'm forgetting something. Whatever. Yeah, I lost my buttons. Is it this one? Am I supposed to go to this first? It is. Okay, there we go. Night.